Good evening. Welcome to the regular Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 meeting of the St. Helena Planning Commission. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Furdick, will you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. Secretary Gamero, will you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Furdick?
Here.
Commissioner Lopez?
Here.
Vice Chair Warner?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson is absent, and Chair Pont.
Here. That takes us to public forum. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Because of restrictions imposed by the Brown Act, the Commission may not engage in discussion or take action on matters not described on the agenda. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to speak to the Commission on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none. That takes us to consent items. Members of the Commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of considering alternative action, for extended discussion, or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. Does any member of the Commission wish to break up in the package, as it were?
Yes, it's actually for one of the ones designated for a public hearing. I'd like to move, if my fellow commissioners are comfortable and the public is comfortable, move to have the CIP item heard as a consent item with everything else.
Is there any objection to that from the commissioners?
I have no objection.
Any objections to that from the public? In which case, I think I need a vote to move it from A to B, so we need a motion.
Yeah,
please.
I move to move the CIP item on the public hearing agenda to the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Furdick. Secretary Gamero, will you tally the votes, please?
Vice Chair Warner?
Yes?
Commissioner Furdick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
And Chair Pont?
Yes. I'll take that beer later, Joe.
I think that's mine.
Well, if you notice, I asked after the act was done. That makes it legal according to the Supreme Court.
I'll be happy to share my beer with you.
Okay. That moves us to, that's right. We need a vote on the consent calendar. Now it has two items, the minutes and the public hearing.
I so move approval of the consent agenda, which includes the two items that you just referenced.
Okay.
I'll second.
And we have a second. Secretary Gamero, tally those votes, please.
Vice Chair Warner?
Yes?
Commissioner Furdick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
And Chair Pont?
Yes. Thank you. That takes us to public hearings, of which we just dropped the first one, so we have 5.2, request by Caroline Hernandez to approve a temporary use permit for the private ticketed Botticelli dinner and entertainment event to be held at the Monte Olivos estate located at 2500 Spring Mountain Road, St. Helena, within the 20-acre agricultural zoning district, to be held on June 20th, 2025, with a maximum attendance of 600 persons. I will open the public hearing and ask if any member of the commission has had any ex parte contact on this item.
No?
No.
Seeing none, I will then ask for the staff report. Director DeRosa, please.
Thank you, Chair Pont, members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. Senior Planner O'Neill will be delivering the presentation for 2500 Spring Mountain this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you for that introduction. The applicant is here this evening and has a presentation that they'll be sharing as well, so I will do my best to keep this brief and concise. Okay, so as Chair Pond has introduced, the applicant has submitted a request for a temporary use permit for a 600-person event that will consist of a dinner and live music to be held at 2500 Spring Mountain Road. I've included 2 aerial views so everyone can have a good understanding of where this is. This is in the A20 district. The site is on a largely wooded hillside. As you can see, it is a rather large parcel. The parcel to the west and to the south are under the same ownership, and there are several residences along the shared private driveway. This is accessed from a private road off of Spring Mountain that comes where the road veers off near this reservoir, and the uses in the area are generally estate residences, there's open space, and wineries. One more. Thank you. So the guests would be on site for this event from approximately 4:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. with live entertainment scheduled to end sharply at 9:30 p.m. Staff and vendors would be on site to set up and break down from Wednesday the 18th through Sunday the 22nd from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the exception of the day of the event when staff and vendors would be on site from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. The guests will be parking off-site at Charles Krug Winery. The applicants have provided a transportation management plan that identifies that the guests will be moved in 2 waves on 13 mini coach buses, each with a capacity of 27 to 35 passengers. Those passengers will be moved up starting at 4:30 p.m. And with the return transportation from 9:30 to 10 p.m. On-site parking will be limited to essential personnel. No guests will be allowed to park on-site at 2500 Spring Mountain Road. The reason this is before you this evening, this is a first, as I understand it, in St. Helena. The temporary use permit code section has a provision that allows the community development director to refer applications where events are over attendance of 400 persons, and so that is why we're here tonight. So I won't go into this too much because I know that the applicants are going to be going further in detail, but this is a very general overview of the site and the operations. On the far left, you can see where there will be personnel parking, some back-of-house kitchens. In the middle is the stage with the long tables where dinner will be served. On the right, in this area that's hatched out, is where the cocktail reception will be held. And I think most importantly on this slide, you can see where the mini buses will be staged during the event. The applicant has proposed that they will bring everyone up in the 2 flushes. During the event, all of those 13 coach buses will be staged on site. They won't be going back down during the event. If there is some need for someone to come off site, they have smaller vans that will be available. So those will all be staged and ready to come back down the main access road. And this is just a closer visual of the stage and seating area. So the city does have established maximum allowable noise thresholds. These are listed here. They're separated by daytime, evening, and nighttime. These are to protect sensitive receptors, which are typically residential areas, and they represent the maximum ambient levels, which would avoid any adverse impacts on sensitive receptors. So during the times when the event's going to be held, which is primarily in the evening and daytime, evening, and not going into the nighttime because the event is ending at 10 p.m. The maximum volume is between 40 and 45. The applicants have provided a complete noise study. They've also secured a noise permit to exceed these levels during the day. I will let them speak to the most immediately impacted residences. We do have a condition of approval in the resolution that requires that the applicants would reach out to any of the immediate neighbors that might be impacted to inform them about noise as well as egress issues and the traffic management plan. So again, I'll let the applicant speak to this more in depth, but this is the traffic management plan. What they're proposing is to have flaggers along this private drive. So traffic would be moving one way up to the site, and they will have people with radios available to communicate if there's someone who's living along the road who needs to come down to ensure that there's no traffic jams or problems with people who are trying to leave or enter during the same time that the buses are bringing people on or off site. Safety and emergency plans. As you know, we have heard from the public that there are concerns about particularly egress on this site. The image here shows the main entrance road. So this is the private drive I've been referencing in yellow. That's accessed from Spring Mountain Road. There is a secondary entrance that comes off of 29 that is indicated with the green line. This would be utilized by the staff who are coming on site in their personal vehicles, but this would not be utilized by any of those coach buses. It is a narrow road. It is not one that would be likely to be used in the event of an emergency for egress, but it would be kept accessible for our fire department and police department responses. The applicants have provided in their written statement and also as conditioned by the fire department that there will be on-site paramedic and ambulances provided by RockMed. They have private security guards on site. They will be providing weather monitoring during the event. As we discussed earlier, the motor coaches will be staged during the event in the event of a possible emergency evacuation. There will be 2 St. Helena police officers on site, and the conditions of approval also require building and fire department pre-event inspections, and there's also a condition that allows for a planning department member to go and do a site inspection as well. So the analysis for this, the project itself is exempt from the requirements of CEQA pursuant to Section 15304E, which exempts minor temporary uses of land, which would have no negligible or permanent effects on the environment. And a TUP can only be approved after the deciding body has made the following findings. One is that the standards within the code section related to temporary uses have been met, and that the operation of the temporary activity would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. Events are allowed on non-residential properties. This is a property with a residence. However, it also has an active agricultural use. We did consult with legal regarding the definition therein, and the city attorney agreed that this was that this kind of application could be processed with the language in the code. As far as the public health, safety, and welfare, the police department, fire department, building departments, and Department of Public Works have all reviewed the application and provided conditions of approval. So the recommendation this evening is for the reasons described in this presentation and more robustly in the staff report that the Planning Commission determine the project is exempt from the CEQA through Section 15304E and adopt the attached resolution approving TUP 25005 to allow for the private event to be held at 2500 Spring Mountain Road on June 20th with a maximum attendance of 600 people subject to the conditions of approval. I'm available for any questions. I know the applicants are here and would like to give a presentation as well.
Any questions of staff at this
Yes.
point? Yes.
I have a couple.
Vice Chair Warner.
Who is the applicant that the TUP will be enforceable against?
The applicant of for the event is Caroline Hernandez of Outstanding in the Field Events. They primarily are hosting these dinner events, so they're known for these really long tables that are in different places. I don't believe, and I don't know, I could let the applicants that are here this evening speak to it, that there is a relation, even though there is the same last name. I don't know.
Oh, I understand. By the way, I'm very familiar with Outstanding in the Field, having enjoyed one of their events last summer. But I wanted to be sure in terms of actual enforcement, is Outstanding in the Field subject to enforcement of all the conditions of the TUP?
My understanding is they are. Is that correct?
Did they sign the applicant? Was Caroline Hernandez signing the application on behalf of Outstanding in the Field?
Yes, Vice Chair Warner.
What kind of entity is Outstanding in the Field for this purpose? Have we researched their legal structure? No, we will have you answer these questions. I'm asking staff what they've had in front of them with the application. Happy to have that. But I just want to see what staff has reviewed.
Yeah, I would defer to the applicants for that.
So we have not reviewed the legal status of the applicant.
No.
Okay. This simplified evacuation emergency plan, was that in the original application?
That was not, and after speaking to commissioners yesterday, that was something that I asked the applicants if they had something that they could provide and present. So I have not included that in my presentation. It's something that's in their presentation.
So that's not been reviewed by staff?
No, it has not, but we have, I'm sorry,
Right.
We did have a meeting with Alec Vidler, the fire inspector today, who did review this. PD has not had an opportunity to review this evacuation plan.
So is this an amendment to their application? It wasn't included in their application, is what you're telling me.
It wasn't included in their original application, and we asked them if they had anything they could provide today to...
So this is the first we've seen of this evacuation emergency plan?
Correct, yes.
Okay. What's the legal relationship of Outstanding in the Field with the property owner?
I do not.
Is that disclosed in the application?
It is not.
Okay. Those are all my questions for now. I'll have questions for the applicant on some of those.
Any other member have questions of staff at this point?
Your microphone, Chair Pont.
Well, let me ask that again. Does any member of the commission have any other questions for staff at this point? No? I have a couple. First off, Senior Planner O'Neill, could you go over, if you would, briefly, what a TUP is, how it works, how often you can re-up a TUP, if you will, just to give everybody a basis of which to work from to start with?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So the temporary use permit is a mechanism that allows for really two different things in the city. One would be to allow for a use, so maybe a business owner wants to try out a new use like a tasting room. They don't want to commit to a conditional use permit, so they're going to apply for a TUP, which would allow them, almost like, training wheels or dip your toes in the water. Another mechanism of this allows for events, temporary events. Some events are exempted, such as events for nonprofits when certain requirements are met. The code section has two different places where there are regulations for how often an event or a temporary use can be held. One of those is in the use section itself, which outlines parameters for different things that are governed by the TUP process. So an event, and I could pull up the code section and give you the exact language, but events that are over certain periods, like if it's a 2-day event, it can't happen more than 6 times a year. If it's not a 2-day event, in the TUP section itself, this is a post-approval provision, says that a new TUP can only be granted after a 30-day expiration from the prior one. So ostensibly, some types of TUPs could be granted every 30 days. Others would be twice, every 6 months. Or, I'm sorry.
Every 2 months. 6 times.
6 times, thank you.
Okay. It's also my understanding that the code section includes allowances basically for uses that would not otherwise be appropriate or allowed in that zone. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say appropriate, because the findings want us to make a determination that it is appropriate for the zone, but not allowed by right, not necessarily not a provision therein.
Well, I thought not only not allowed by right, not allowed by a normal CUP. A use that would be otherwise illegal in that zone is allowed under a TUP.
Correct.
Okay. So this kind of event normally would not be allowed in the A20. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the TUP is the only way they would get to have this event in the A20.
That's correct.
Thank you. Another couple questions, if you would, please. How many other homes and businesses access off the road that's going to be used for entrance of the buses? 5, 6, 10, 20? What is it?
Well, I can tell you that on my list of people that would be notified, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 10 addresses here. Not all of those are immediately off of this private driveway, but I believe 7 to 8 of them are.
Okay. And those are homes, not businesses? Or are they homes and businesses? What exactly are they?
I believe that they are primarily residences.
Okay, so
Can I make sure the answer relates to all the way up Spring Mountain to the top?
I'm
Okay.
trying to
Gonna
narrow
get
this
there.
down to the private access road at this point. Okay.
And just to clarify, those addresses, they don't reach down onto Spring Mountain. They are strictly up the private access road, and then I believe there's one that's just on the other side of the reservoir that's a sensitive receptor in the noise study.
So we're talking 7 to 10 that would, besides the event, that might be inconvenienced by this event.
I
right?
believe that is true. I know there are also neighbors in the audience who
Okay.
might have a...
How wide is the access road? I mean, it's not in the staff report, so I'm guessing.
That is a good question. I don't have the exact
Do
width
you
of that.
know, Joe?
I do not.
Not know.
May I
Okay.
ask the question I think you should ask? And is the driveway compliant with the latest
I'm
state?
getting
there?
there.
Good.
Setting the,
Please do that.
I'm setting
Go
this
ahead.
up.
You're doing great.
Let me ask, if Public Works doesn't know and Planning doesn't know, fire or police, do you happen to know how wide the access road is? Thank you, John, if you know.
I can get you in the ballpark. Back when Hernandez property was being developed, it was the last lot to be developed, and Jim Capone, the fire marshal then, we made the bulb outs, if you have driven up there, and I believe the road was in the 14-foot range, and we made them add bulb outs so there could be a line of sight. If a car came around the corner, they could pull into the bulb out and let the car pass and then continue.
Okay.
Which is an improvement. It was just one lane.
Okay.
And you were in trouble.
So now it's one lane with pullouts,
With
essentially.
bulb outs, that's right. It's
Okay.
not two-way traffic, the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. How long is this one-way access road?
Third of a mile? Third to a half?
It looks a little further than that by
Beaver Road?
eyeballing it. Anybody know? Say again, over? 7/10 of a mile.
From
So
Spring Mountain Road,
roughly 3/4 of a mile. Could we have your name, sir, for the record? Thank you.
and he stated that it's to the last house.
Okay, this would be, this is essentially the last, yeah.
No, this is to the split. Hernandez's property is at the split, and then
Okay.
it goes beyond. This would be if you stayed to the right and followed it all the way to the end.
Okay,
Like Babe Leonard's old property, okay.
Okay.
That's your property? Okay.
okay. Now, I'm going to ask the question that I had on my list. Does the road meet current standards for an access drive? You may not know that, but planning should know that.
The standards, access for, I mean,
Does it meet current
This-
standards for an access
I
drive?
don't believe so.
It's 20 feet minimum, right, for a current access drive?
Yes, for two-way traffic, yes.
Yeah,
And-
so
and
this
Chair-
is not even close.
Chair, there's also some new state fire roads regarding turnouts.
I'm getting
You
to the
that?
next question.
Okay, good. You're good.
Since fire's up, I've got one more fire question, John. What fire hazard zone is this in?
Severity zone,
Yes,
on the new map that's coming,
yeah, on the new map that's already available, yeah.
it's available but has not been adopted. It is in, this one is going to be in high or very high.
Okay, okay. Very high?
Very
So
high,
just
yeah.
shy of extreme then?
It's very high. High to very high.
I believe it's the highest level.
I thought there was like an extreme on the map.
Not on our map.
Okay.
That would be purple, you're right, and that would be extreme.
Yeah,
And,
so we're
no, we don't have purple.
Second tier, essentially, if you go A
Second from
through
the
F.
top, third from the bottom.
From the top.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That was it. One more statement. They're not minibuses. Come on, guys. They're cutaways. A 30-person cutaway is not a minibus. Please use proper terminology. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions of staff at this point? Yes, Commissioner Furtick.
I think my question I think you addressed it, which is, you know, the parameters in the code, it looked to me like it does not state a lot of restrictions around what kind of events in this zone are acceptable or not. There's a lot of latitude. That's something we may want to revisit after this. So I just want to,
Let me say, we've had the TUP now available for about 3 years, something like that?
It's been longer because I've been here for 4 years, so I want to say maybe 5 to 6 years.
Okay. And it's
Have
been-
we
And it's
had-
been really successful up to this point.
have we had other applicants in A20 request a TUP similar to this, of this size and scope?
I can speak to that. So we have issued a prior TUP for this site. It was administratively approved in February of this year. It was for an event that was something somewhat similar in that it was a seated dinner with live music.
This was live in the vineyards?
Yes. And this came to us, and it was approved administratively. We've learned through this process that people had complaints. They were not pleased with that event. To my knowledge, PD did not receive any complaints. Planning did not receive complaints directly, but as this project has been moving forward, we've learned that people living off of Beaver Road were inconvenienced by it, primarily by not being able to exit their driveways.
How many people at that event, do you know?
450.
450, so.
And, I think the applicant first reached out to me just a few weeks after that event had passed, and it certainly caught our attention. Having two events, one at 450, the next one 600 on the same event, and Director DeRosa gave me the immediate direction, like, this is starting to look like a trend and a pattern, and we need to bring this to the Planning Commission because it is unprecedented to have these types of events on the A20 site. To my knowledge, no other TUPs have been processed for any other A20 sites in the city or on other.
We would have to get back to you on that because I think there may be one that was a small winery that had like a dinner event. It's not unusual because they're very large, down on the valley floor I'm talking about, yeah.
I know they've done some winery events for sure.
No problem. At these events on this site, are they selling any product that they produce?
Maybe we need to wait for the applicant
Okay,
to give us that.
that's a better question for the applicant.
Yeah. Any other questions of staff at this time? Yes, Vice Chair Warner.
Be sure, will alcohol in the sense of wine be served at this event?
Yes. There is a.
Napa Valley, it's like.
I know, I was going to say, I assumed it would, and that might end up answering Commissioner Furtick's question is whether there will also be an opportunity for the sale of wine at the event.
And
You can
there
ask the
is-
applicant.
We will get to that, I'm sure.
And there is a condition of approval in the resolution that requires the applicant to
ABC
submit
license.
evidence of their ABC licenses, that they have their county licenses from environmental health as well.
Okay. And have their people trained to pour and yada, 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 yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions of staff at this point? Okay, I'll invite the applicant to speak. You have 10 minutes, so please. And the clock doesn't start until the electronics work, so.
State his name and who he represents. State his name.
Thank you very much for your time tonight. My name is Andrew Clements from 100X Hospitality. We're working with Outstanding in the Field on this event, and we're also producing the event at Krug, so you'll hear from me twice tonight. So the project that we're working on at Monte Olivos is Dinner Bocelli's. This is a seated dinner with performances throughout the evening as a partnership with the Andrea Bocelli Foundation to raise money for his charity. Okay, thank you. So for tonight's presentation, I just want to go through a few points here. General project overview, and then key event details. A number of questions that you guys already have asked, we will be addressing here. So the attendance will be, as mentioned before, a 600-person seated dinner with intermittent performances throughout the evening. The event will start at 4:45 with transportation from Charles Krug Winery starting at 4:30. The food experience will be from 6 o'clock until 8:30 with musical performances intermittent between 6:15 and 9:30. The food has been curated by Chef Elliot Bell from St. Helena's Charlie's Restaurant. I know it's tough to see here, but it's a general run of show. Basically, it's 5 minutes of musical performance with a long intermission when dinner will be served. So 5 minutes to start, then 55 minutes intermission. Second act will be another 5 minutes, 35-minute intermission. Third act will be 5 minutes. There will be speeches from the Andrea Bocelli Foundation for approximately 10 minutes. And then there will be an intermission again. After that, there will be an auction with an introduction of 5 minutes. And then a 10-minute performance after that, as well as a 10-minute auction of a guitar signed by Andrea Bocelli. And then 15 minutes as the final act, with the musical performances ending at 9:30. Next slide again. So, as Jackie showed before, this is our global site map. This highlights all the access as well as the vehicle parking areas and the long tables for the dinner. Next slide. This is a zoomed in version of the actual performance space with the long tables. There will be 7 tables basically in an array coming from the stage. And then to the left side of the map is where the cooking will be. It will be an open kitchen format where people will be actually be able to approach the chef and see and have somewhat of an interactive experience with the cooking aspects of the event. On the right side is the reception area. So as people arrive, they'll be dropped off on the road, and then we'll have a bar down in the reception area as well as a string quartet performing down there, non-amplified. And then as we approach the dinner time, we'll have our internal staff directing people to the seating area. As mentioned before, we'll be doing all the parking off-site at Krug Winery, and then we'll be using minibuses or, I'm sorry, what was the term you used?
Cutaways.
Cutaways.
That's the term of art.
Okay. So we'll be using the cutaways to transport people up Spring Mountain to the event site. Additionally shown here is the traffic management plan showing signage as well as traffic control positions along the road. The road itself has 5 different cutaways on the way up to the property. Based on our measurements, the road is approximately 1,800 feet long from the public road on Spring Mountain to the gate of the property. As far as emergency management goes, we will have on-site medical management from Rock Medicine, who will be providing medical management on both of our events throughout the weekend. Additionally, we will have AMR ambulance on site. For fire safety, there is an existing fire truck stationed that is able to operate at the event site by the property ownership. Emergency exits will all be clearly marked with ample signage as well as lighting throughout the property. We will also have the ambulance, as mentioned, on site. Emergency buses. So as mentioned prior, we will stage the buses on site in the case of emergency. In that situation, we will be able to put approximately 40 to 55 passengers with standing room on the buses. Additionally, there is 2 on-site shelter-in-place locations that can be used in the case of emergency. If there is an emergency, we can use pre-recorded emergency messaging and live announcements via what we call a voice of God from the front of house mixed position to the amplified speakers at the stage. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So as far as emergency planning goes, we will be having weather monitoring, and then we'll take into consideration any potential threats in the area. We also have, as mentioned, we have the shelter in place in 2 different locations. We will be able to utilize the buses that are on site in the case of emergency. And we can maintain those buses on the property if we think the threat will pass. Otherwise, we can evacuate people back to Krug Winery where they can go to their vehicles. Given the vehicles on site, we have an expected capacity of 585 to 650 people. Additionally, as mentioned prior, we will have smaller vehicles on site to transport people off property as quickly as possible if needed. And for the noise study, I'm going to pass this over to John.
Thank you, Commission. So at the request of the Planning Department, we had a noise study done focused on the noise impact within 1 mile of the property as well as any of the closest receptors. With that noise study, it has been determined that anything within 1/2 mile, will be under the 40 dB limit that the city sets. There is 1 small house on this graph that falls within the 50 to 55 range, and for that reason, we've pulled the permit from the police department for going over, although we don't expect it to be an issue, but being precautionary for that one instance. For anybody that doesn't know, sound is affected by weather, by wind, by moisture, by clouds, so you cannot predict exactly what's going to happen always, but this prediction used, it's not in this one, I'm sorry. This prediction used a certain humidity level that's common during the month of June, as well as pressure levels. as Jackie mentioned, the noise ordinance or the noise rules go into effect in different tranches throughout the night, but from 10 p.m. on, it gets much stricter. So we're ending at 9:30 promptly to make sure that we are within the 40 dB limit, because at 10 p.m. the 35 dB limit takes into effect. This noise study was peer-reviewed by Saxelby Acoustics, who was recommended to us by the local Planning Commission, and they stamped off with their approval that they agree that it will be barely perceptible or even inaudible beyond the 1/2 mile range. This is also using a 3D imaging, so it's taken into account the topography of the property, not looking at it as just one flat piece of land. So for someone that's higher up, they would have a different effect than someone that's lower down based on the sound study. Just because it's in relation to this, there is 6 houses on the road that we are aware of that are not owned by the property. There are 8 to 10 addresses, but 6 individual properties that are not owned by the property is what we know. That could be incorrect, and we could get that info from somebody who lives on the road, but that is our understanding and what we put into the plan, into the receptors, which you can barely see on this map. Is there another one on the second slide? Can you check the next slide? No, so that's just the key findings. So that's the end of our presentation. I'm happy to take the questions for the group, since I'm already up here. Is there any questions?
Any questions of the applicant at this point?
Plenty. But it's not on noise. I'd like that, maybe it's 100X Hospitality, right?
Yeah, I can answer all of them. I'm part of 100X
Oh,
Hospitality.
okay. So what's the legal relationship of 100X Hospitality, outstanding in the field, and the property owner?
So 100X Hospitality has hired Outstanding in the Field to procure the property, the TUP permit, and provide all the food and beverage. And then Outstanding in the Field is contracted with the property as the venue for the event.
So why didn't 100X Hospitality, as a sponsor of the project, file the TUP application?
It's the relationship with Outstanding in the Field and the property, and just that's how Outstanding in the Field does their programs. They secure the venue as part of their entire experience and their whole package. So they design the entire food experience as well as the venue.
But it's the food experience. You arrange all the other aspects of the event, correct?
Correct.
Would you be willing to be on the TUP?
Of
so
course.
it can be enforced against you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And in terms of the relationship with the property owner, can you tell me what insurance all 3 of you as parties carry for third-party liability and personal injury on this event?
I don't know exactly. We have a $5 million umbrella, and we do much larger events than this. We do events all over the world, so I'm sure our insurance will be more than sufficient for whatever the TUP requires.
I'd like to have for the record exactly how much insurance you have, and do you have cross-indemnification clauses with Outstanding in the Field and the property owner?
I don't know those answers off the top of my head,
It'd
but I
be
can
useful to have that as an answer, too. How about Outstanding in the Field? What insurance does Outstanding in the Field carry in terms of liability?
Yeah, you can just speak, right? You can speak from there, or does he need to come up?
Yeah,
Please.
feel free to come up, introduce yourself, no problem.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. My name is Tommy Murphy. I'm with Outstanding in the Field. We have similar insurance.
Okay, be useful to know the exact number.
I do not.
Yeah,
We typically carry an umbrella, like it's more like $2 million.
Okay, but maybe you can
for
provide-
for our expenditures, we
Maybe,
don't
maybe you
have.
can provide that for the record.
Sure.
I mean, $5 million for 600 people in terms of the risks here. Anyway, how about the property owner? How much liability insurance do they carry for any liability of third parties, including neighbors, personal injury, damage, property damage, et cetera?
Give or take $3 million, he said.
Okay, that's useful to know.
And just for clarity, we have a 1-2 policy with the $5 million umbrella, so we have 6 per occurrence and 7 in the aggregate.
Okay, good.
That can be increased if needed.
That's helpful. And 100X is a LLC, I understand. How about Outstanding in the Field? I couldn't find exactly what corporate entity you have.
We're incorporated.
Okay, so you're California Corporation? Okay. And by the way, again, I've enjoyed Outstanding in the Field, your events. You're a very good event organizer. How about the property owner? Is the property owner, what kind of a corporate entity is the property owner? It's a trust. Is it the trust that has the insurance? Yeah, come to the podium, please, to answer.
Hi, Commission. My
Yes.
name is Marcela Hernandez. I'm representing the property owner.
Right.
I'm the daughter.
That's fine, that's good. Sure.
So the property is owned by a trust, and the policy is written on the property on behalf of the trust.
Okay, and it's, and you think it's in the 3 million range for personal property damage and personal injury liability?
That's right.
Okay. And is there any, again, for all of you, is there any cross indemnification among the three parties?
In our contracts, there is a cross indemnification.
How about between Outstanding in the Field and 100 Hospitality?
I just don't know that off the top of my head. I
It'd
can
be-
pull up the contract pretty easily and look after we get off if you'd like.
Yeah, it'd be useful to know what that is, because again, you've got three of you, you have different aspects of what you're doing for the event. Again, each of you have your skill sets for the event, and again, very, very well-known event sponsors and culinary sponsors too, and the property owner. Let me ask a couple more questions. When did you develop the simplified evacuation emergency plan that you submitted tonight?
So-
When did you draft that?
So the plan to use the buses and the emergency exit road, the ambulances, the CAL FIRE access, that's been in the plan since the
Right.
very beginning. It was not requested in the TUP application, or it would have been in there. So
Sure.
I think maybe Jackie and I spoke, I don't know, maybe a couple days ago, and I said, no problem, we have a plan, we just didn't
Okay.
put it in there because it wasn't requested.
Okay.
So
Would you be willing to field test that plan before the event with buses that are sized and are looking at how they can do a turnaround and where they're going to be parked vis-à-vis the neighbors?
bringing out 13 buses and doing that would be a pretty expensive cost.
No, I mean, you basically would have one bus, but you could estimate how the 13 buses would be arranged and how they would be able to move in and out for ingress and egress. Would you
Yeah,
be willing to?
we would be. We did that 2 weeks ago, actually, so we could do it again.
Okay. How did you do it with one bus then?
One
Okay.
bus. And just for the record, not to
Sure.
not to say anything is wrong, but there's a difference between the type of bus that you mentioned and that we mentioned. So minibuses are traditionally 15 to 35 seats, and the what was it called? The cutaway
Cutaways.
is traditionally 37 to 45 seats.
No, you're talking to somebody that spent 30 years doing transportation. That's not correct.
Okay. Well, we
Nice try, though.
No, I'm not trying. Just so you're aware, I for the last 16 years have overseen the entire transportation operation for the entire Coachella Music Festival, and we do 600 buses a weekend, and even this past weekend in Las Vegas, moved 60,000 people a day to and from. And so in our part of the industry, they're referred to as minibuses, and the bigger ones that are separated from the cab are referred to as the cutaways. So it's just a difference in terminology.
And I'm not going to disagree with anybody who's saying anything here. What's more important to me is the size of the buses, the turnaround opportunities on a driveway that at least tentatively appears to me to be not up to the CAL FIRE standards for turnarounds and ingress and
Basically
egress.
Basically none.
Yeah, and so that's where I think having a field test that's observed by both our St. Helena Fire Department experts and CAL FIRE, it would be useful to have that done before the event. Sorry if I'm waiting for you to
No.
hear, listen. All right, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah,
And with our fire department?
for sure.
Seeing it.
And the property has had mini buses, cutaways on the
Whatever
property
we
before.
call
and
them,
done.
right. But that's good. I mean, I really appreciate that because part of this is I've worked and I'll give you a little bit about my background, both personal and professional. I'm not only an attorney and on the Planning Commission, but I'm on the board of Napa Firewise and co-leader of the St. Helena Fire Safe Council. So my monomaniacal focus on this event is wildfire safety. And of course, our role here at the Planning Commission, like any official of the city, is safety first. So I appreciate your being able to kind of provide reassurance on actually demonstrating the capability to get people out quickly and anticipating people coming down from on top of Spring Mountain Road at the same time. If you have an event like we had with the glass fire, within basically an hour and a half to 2 hours from when the fire was solely on the east side, the ember cast went all the way across, and I witnessed the fire as it marched up Spring Mountain. So I have a real personal experience in understanding what you're up against to try to do an evacuation of 600 people if you have an ember cast event during a red flag event. And that gets me to my final request or comment. Would you be willing, and I think the answer is going to be no, but I want to test you out here, to basically agree that if the city, based on its wildfire safety standards, decided a day or two before the event that the event has to be canceled, would you be willing to accept that as a condition if you are basically deferring to a city that basically likes events like this and wants the event to succeed, but also is primarily concerned with public safety?
So we carry cancellation insurance, which is in place for wildfires. We have a $40 million cancellation policy insurance that covers our entire year of events. We do about 12 of these events a year, most of them much larger than this.
Right.
And so we have a policy in place for that. I would need to check with the insurance on what we
Sure.
would need as an official statement from the government to shut it down. We could not allow it to be shut down without being covered because we'd be
Yes.
out millions of dollars.
And boy, I thought you were going to say no, but I forgot about the event cancellation insurance business, because you have
We've spent
COVID.
a lot of money on it over the last 15 years.
I was going to say, particularly in 2000, 2001, I'm sure. That's useful to know, because I think having a opportunity for the city to basically review the safety a couple days before the event allays a huge amount of my concerns about that, along with demonstrating the ability to get people in and out in kind of a field test. Those are two very important conditions, and you've already identified them pretty much here with your emergency evacuation plan. But we do have substandard roads from a standpoint of fire evacuation. But I think what I'll mention is the state fire standards allow a local government now to evaluate the adequacy of the ingress and egress, even if the driveways and the roads aren't strictly compliant. So that really helps me a lot. I have a final, probably irrelevant question, has nothing to do with the application, but I'm going to do anyway.
As for beignets? No.
No, it's actually similar to that, and that is, I'll just say, I looked at your hotel packages, and you're strictly allowing hotel packages way down in the city of Napa, which has nothing to do with St. Helena. I'm surprised you didn't have hotel packages for Harvest Inn or Aaliyah. Or,
We do.
oh, you do?
We have a full buyout at Aaliyah. We have almost a full buyout at Harvest Inn. We got as many rooms
Well,
as we could.
that's excellent.
spread
Maybe I
all
was
over
looking on a
valley.
website, and that's the only hotel
Those
packages.
are both
or-
sold out. Aaliyah only has one room left, I believe.
In my next presentation, I can go through all the hotels we have. We have 14 different hotels throughout the valley.
Good, because the website I looked at had only the.
We move them around based on
Andaz.
availability.
Yeah. Excellent. Having nothing to do with this top, though.
Yeah. And so just to add, safety is by far our top priority
Right.
to us. Also being a good partner. And so the city of Helena is our partner in this. Charles Krug Winery is our partner in this.
Right.
The police is a partner in this. And so we will meet the week of the event with all entities that will be in our incident command center on the Saturday and Sunday event.
Right.
And we'll review all of the risks at that time for the entire weekend. And we will be looking at the entire weekend under one microscope of what could happen, what may happen, and what are our risks. Obviously, based on, I forgot who asked the question, being on top of the mountain, this one's in high or very high risk, which is the reason for the fire truck on site, the 2,500-gallon fire truck tied into the well on site, as well as a backup plan. Obviously, that doesn't help with embers, but that'll be parked next to the kitchen. It'll be there for anything
Well-
that could be caused by our own doing on site.
Well, what you've just said in the last two items you've said about the willingness to do a field test, a field demonstration, probably even just repeating what you've already done, but for our fire experts, and also be willing to risk a cancellation that's done not arbitrarily, but in the event of a severe fire risk. That's very, very, very helpful and consistent with what I would expect.
Yes, and for
from
the record, I need to
event,
make sure that.
sponsor
Sorry.
like yourself. My only other comment, which probably goes without saying, is I'm sure you're going to have your guests told not to smoke any cigarettes or other smoking type things. Right.
There'll be no smoking signs all over the
Other
property, for
smoking
sure.
type things.
Right. Those are all my questions. I really appreciate your being responsive.
For sure,
lot
that's
of
what we're here
weed
for.
and
And
classical
I
music
do need to check on the insurance and
Sure.
what would be covered. So
That would
to
be
have that in there
very
as
helpful. And
a.
the amount for each of the entities would be useful to know.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant at this point?
We did get the answer on the cross indemnification, and it is in the contract without standing in the field.
Very good.
I do have a couple. On your evacuation emergency plan, what gets triggers on watch and what gets triggered on warning?
So for us, On watch would be anything that's an immediate danger in the area.
No, I mean, CAL FIRE says we're on watch. CAL FIRE says we're on warning. What gets triggered in your plan under those two conditions?
We would need to meet with them ahead of time and establish what they would want in those situations. That meeting has not happened yet.
Okay, so you don't have any idea what you're going to do if they say, okay, you're on warning. This whole area is on warning. You don't know what you're going to do based on that.
Well, I mean, the warning could be for a week in advance. It kind of goes to the
No.
conversation.
Fire warning, fire watch. Two of their ratings. You're on watch, you're on warning, okay? No, okay, no idea.
We would want to meet with the entities and come up with a plan.
I think if they demonstrate their ingress and egress and evacuation testing, it should also, from the advice of our fire department and CAL FIRE, really flesh out what's triggered when. You make a very good point.
All I heard from them is that we will cancel if we get official notice to cancel from the government, I presume the city at this point.
Correct.
But-
Any city or government official is allowed to cancel, and that would trigger the
They
insurance
also
policy.
follow CAL FIRE, right?
Right.
And those are the ones that provide the ratings on how bad they expect it to be, right? You're on watch, you're on warning, the local guys basically just repeat what CAL FIRE tells them. So I'm asking you what gets triggered under your plan if CAL FIRE says, well, we got a fire watch this weekend? Or what happens under your plan if CAL FIRE says, oh, we have a fire warning for the next 8 hours?
Right, so it would need to be determined by them on what they would want to do in that situation. Insurance would cover for certain things, and we could outline what those would be for them as well. But safety is number one. I mean, if there's a risk to the event and the attendees that are there, we would cancel the event.
I don't know if that's really a satisfactory warning, but okay. The other question is, what's your situation with the vehicles? Do you own them, or are you leased from an operator?
The
You
cutaways?
Yeah, you're leased from an operator.
Leased from an operator, yeah, an operator that we
Okay.
use all over the country for all of our events.
Do you have an agreement to cover the operator's liability?
For sure,
If you're
they have-
cramming 50 people on a bus that's, rated for 20?
We have a contract with them with mutual indemnification, and they have, I believe, $30 million in insurance.
Should be about one bus. Last question. I heard that the route directly from 29 isn't that usable by anything very large.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct?
A 15-passenger van, a ambulance, CAL FIRE, regular vehicles, but the cutaways, minibuses could not use it. They
Okay.
could, but it would be very, very, very slow, and we wouldn't use it in an
And
emergency.
certainly no fire equipment.
Not a large fire truck, no.
Okay, so the only thing that would go up and down that would be essentially personal-sized vehicles, right?
Chair Pont, we might ask our chief that, because my understanding is there is access for a certain size of fire vehicle up that.
Well, I see him standing there since you prompt him to
correct me.
move. Come on, John.
I want to clarify a couple things. Commissioner Fredek, you almost had me there. There are no purple zones in California. Those are extreme weather zones. I looked at the CAL FIRE map, and it's very high, and then moderate. So this area is in high, not the top. It's in high.
Okay, second one down.
This is Fuel Model 2, which is grass and oaks, and it's on the eastern aspect, meaning it's facing the east. So when the sun is setting right now, the sun is on those hills heating them up. This one's in the shade. So that's the difference. That's probably why it's a high and not very high, where that side is in red. My mistake, I had it flipped. And then you have a question.
It's whether the secondary road there, the ingress.
What kind of
egress road,
equipment you can get up and down
Can
it?
a fire truck get up there of any size?
Pickup type 6s, which is the little brush rig F550. Our water tender has been up there. There are 3 switchbacks. If you've ever been up that road, they are pretty tight, but they do make it. We've had a little small fire there before, and it was handled with our rigs. But yes, the type 1 cannot make it up there. That is a
Okay.
3-foot-long, 35,000-pound
So
rig.
the brush fire rig could make it up.
Yeah, both brush rigs and the water tender could make it.
Okay.
And they might have to make a little jog on those switchbacks to go, but they've been there before.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
and
if
we've been the other way,
if
no
the buses
problem.
are withdrawing the other way, yeah.
It's better than having shared, meaning fire
Right.
rigs coming up while buses are leaving, no way.
That wouldn't work on a one-lane road.
Nope.
Wouldn't work at all. Okay, thank you.
Yep. You bet.
Any other questions at this point? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Call.
I would like then to call for public testimony, either in support or in opposition to this project. So let me ask this first. Could I see a number of hands of people who want to testify on this? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't quite see 5. I see 5. Okay. We can do that, I think, pretty straightforward without having to hand out cards or anything else. So please, if you want to testify either for and against, come to the podium, give us your name, and tell us what you want to say.
Good evening. My name is Edward Kuntz. I'm here with my wife, Caroline Kuntz. We're the owners of 2488 Spring Mountain Road along the Bieber Road that you have been discussing. We're further up than the property under consideration tonight. Our main concern is the serialization of the temporary use permit. It's pretty obvious that this is a commercial activity. From the discussions tonight, from the prior application that was filed, from the fact that the property is advertised on a public website for events. This was not what was intended for this property. This is a residential area, and to bring up 600 people with all the attendant issues, even if they can get by them, is not what we intended when we bought our property, nor what our neighbors intended when they bought their property. Obvious, again, that it's a commercial activity. A question that I have also is, what fees are the property owners getting out of this event as well? Of course, the event planners and the like are going to get a fee, which is expected. What profit or revenue will the property owners get out of this for owning this residential property now being used for commercial purposes? As I said, our main objection, I should say, is the serialization or the continual use of the temporary use permit. Surely that was not what was intended in the code of the city. It seems to us that this is a misuse and an abuse of that process. And we ask the commission to consider that in its deliberations. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Michael Haley. I live next door to 2500. I live at 2490. I want to mention a couple of things before. I wrote a letter, and I hope you all had a chance to see it. I don't have time to go through it all, so I'm going to just mention a couple other points, but I hope you do get a chance to read it. Jackie O'Neill, I met with her. She was very helpful. I ended up putting that the noise level was 96. Somehow I got that out of the meeting. That was a mistake. That's not her fault. But that's in the letter. But I understand it's going to be like 45 to 50 or something like that. The other thing I wanted to mention is I'm not in favor of stopping this event for them. That's, that wouldn't be kind to them. They've put so much time and energy into this, and there's so much money on the line. And really the concern, like Eddie said, is the future events. This is an event center. This is not an accessory use to agriculture. There's no ag going on there. Or if there is, it's very small. It's very limited. It doesn't justify turning the whole place into an event center. I hope that's not the intentions of the A20 zoning. Even in your code, I mentioned, it says that events are for large wineries in St. Helena. There's no winery there. I doubt if, I was a farmer. my wife inherited a farm. I ran it for 14 harvests south of Yountville. And, you know, I can just tell there's nobody even living there, right? I've never seen my next door neighbor before. This is the first time I've seen her. I've been there for a year. So there's no people living there. It's an event center, and they're planning all these commercial events, and that's what our concern is. As far as the road, it's very narrow. What's going to happen, I got started on this, I didn't even know they were doing it, is that I had to go somewhere, and I went out, and it was in the middle of the event that they did a couple weeks ago, and they wouldn't let me go down the road. And I was just sitting there going, well, this is my driveway, you know, heck with them, whoever this is. I didn't know what was going on. I just went around them, and I ran into one of the buses that was bringing people up. And the guy just stopped, you know, and he looked at me, and he didn't know what to do. And if you drive up and down it a lot, like my neighbors do, you figure out how to work your way around. But it's very tough to get around somebody on this road. I drive my Jeep all the time for that very reason, because I can go off-road a little bit and get around people. But all it would take is for two people like me that don't know what's going on and decide they want to go out in the middle of it, because the bus driver would have had to back up, and there's blind curves, you know, so he wouldn't have been able to see. And if somebody had come up behind me, and in a lot of the places, there's trees right there, I can't take my Jeep around it. You know, I could just see that if there was some kind of panic, it would just be gridlock. In 10 minutes, you would have gridlock on that road, and people wouldn't be able to get by. So I think this size of these events are just, I mean, it was just eye-popping to all of us. Like, I can't believe that they're doing this here. It's just inappropriate, you know. Mondavi, Krug, they do big concert events, but they're on a main highway. They've got a parking lot, you know. There's nothing there like that, you know. It's just not an appropriate place to have events like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Anyone else care to speak against this proposal? I keep turning my mic off, and they keep waving at me.
Jennifer Haley, 2490 Spring Mountain Road. My husband and I bought our home in a very small neighborhood. It's been discussed tonight. And the reason we bought it was for the peacefulness and the beauty of living in the foothills of Napa Valley. It wasn't until this year when we heard the country music concert that it kind of made me wonder what was going on, because last year there were concerts, some of them that were very loud, even with their doors and windows shut and earphones on, I could still hear the bass sound from the music. So after this recent concert, I started looking through the internet to see, are there like commercial events coming? Because previously I thought they were just having extravagant family birthday parties or something. There's several things I sent to in my letter to planning that's been discussed tonight, but I'll do some other ones. We've never been given any notice. The neighbors have never been given any notice that these events are coming up. So we can't plan our own personal lives or even our errands. And like if somebody was to plan a small family engagement party and they didn't know that they were having an event in the same, using the same road, we wouldn't know that until our guests were coming up or we were starting to come back down the hill. So I think it's very inappropriate that we haven't had that courtesy. And I know that the city of St. Helena has added a new zoning code, the A20. And understandably, the details of the definition of this new zoning needs to be reviewed to work out the problems that it can also bring. Napa County found it necessary to do the same when it was developing its allowed uses and disallowed uses. And the safety issues of living in a very secluded, very private, and very wealthy neighborhood, we have felt very safe up there. But then when we find out that there's these huge events happening with the public and different workers coming up for it, it kind of it creates that feeling of uncertainty, for future criminal problems. And I've experienced that before when there was a home in another area of Napa where we were living, and they were having illegal events, and they started having cars broken into, and then they went up to our lane and they broke into one of our buildings and robbed it in the middle of the night. So those are things that do come to mind. And when Napa County residents receive their property bills, and when a person buys a home within the Napa Valley, there is always their reminder statement about the right to farm. It's a law. And I do believe there should be a similar statement on behalf of the new code 820, so that people thinking of buying property next to or close to an existing 820 property, that the potential buyers know about it, so they can actually make a choice. And I do feel like all these commercial events, they're going to make our property, they're going to make our real estate values go down. Because if you were to, I would highly encourage you to drive up Spring Mountain Road to our neighborhood, and you'll see how special it is, and you'll understand why we have moved up there. And, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this particular project? I'm afraid you can't.
I'm a neighbor, I live next door.
Yeah, that's okay. You're the applicant. You're related to the applicant. The applicant is doing it on your place. It's not
my home.
I'm sorry. No. It's not, you're not testifying as, you're testifying as somebody who is getting rewarded by the project that is happening on your property. So, no, thank you.
My property. I live next door.
Are you a member of the trust?
No, I'm not actually.
You're not a member of the trust. Are you representing the trust?
No, I just wanted to answer the question because I know the working of it.
You're not representing the trust, even though you got up and said, I'm here for the family.
No, I said I understand how the trust works. It's my parents' trust. I mean, it's okay if I don't talk. I honestly just wanted to introduce to the neighbors.
I'm afraid it's a matter of fairness. You're getting 2 bites of the apple, right?
Chair Pont,
yes.
I do believe, though, for due process, we cannot prohibit somebody from the public wanting to comment during public comment.
Let me
Well,
also.
let me put it this way. The applicant wouldn't be allowed to stand up and testify under public comment, correct?
Technically, if there was something apropos for them to respond to,
Well, we would ask for a response, right? But this is essentially the applicant on their property. They're getting paid for it.
I wouldn't say she's directly on the application, so I think that could be.
All right. I would like to have an attorney tell us that, not this one, but city attorney.
I wasn't going to act as an attorney. I was just thinking that we could, I think the next speaker speaks a little bit at her peril as well, but let her speak.
Please.
Okay, well, hello, thank you. My name is Marcela Hernandez. I actually live at 2491, so I'm here to speak as a neighbor. But I do know, obviously, the family that lives at 2500, which people do live there. Hi, it's a family of 7, actually, who the mom went to the Culinary Institute, studied there and graduated from the baking and pastry, fell in love with the kindness and inclusivity that Napa Valley provided, and actually moved to Napa, restored 5,000 olive trees, actually, on that property that were planted by Charles Krug, which is the connection to Charles Krug event because of the history. Restore them to production capacity. So you might say we're a small business, but today we actually today we actually got an order for 8,000 cases of olive oil. So to me, that's not small. That's a big feat. We actually have a tasting room of the olive oil we make there. It's a 140-year-old olive tree, one of the oldest producing olive groves in the Napa Valley. So I want to ensure the neighbors this is not a serial TUP. It was back-to-back, but we've just been approached by the beauty and history of the property in the relation to the event that they're doing at Charles Krug. That's the story with that. But I do want to ensure that people do live there. That is a place we call home. Napa Valley and Spring Moun are places we call home. And we're familiar with the fire department. We actually were part of a staging area during the 2019 fires with Napa Firewise as well, actually mitigated the properties not only of ours, but all of the neighbors with our own resources and equipment. So we're part of the community. We love the community. All we want to bring is fun events and obviously be respectful to neighbors, but that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Kuntz. I live at 2488 Spring Mountain Road on the very top of Bieber Road. And living on a mountain is not like living in the city. If a dog barks, we hear it. So I don't know about the noise study, but they haven't been at my house and done 45 decibels or 35 and know that we could hear it and hear it loudly. The other thing is, for me, it's a safety issue. The road is not safe for this kind of amount of traffic. We've lived through the 2020 fire, and it's hard to get insurance here. And the thought of any one person that could possibly accidentally start an ember is beyond scary. We would like them not to do this particular event. And the other thing is that Distinct Locations is a company that helps owners transform their properties into event venues. Monte Olivos Estate is listed as one of the feature sites. Monte Olivos Estate distinct locations, event venues, expressly advertising that their property is available for weddings, social gatherings, and corporate events. These uses are not legally allowed on this property, and in my opinion, cannot be legalized by obtaining a series of temporary use permits. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Last call? Thank you. What, Director DeRosa?
That would be a question for the...
Chair Pont, Jonathan Forden is asking if he can speak at the dais again, the applicant who...
Well, there is, in our process, an opportunity for the applicant to respond, but I find it more efficient to see if there's any questions based on the public testimony first, right? Otherwise, we'd have to have the applicant up twice potentially. This is just, okay. Any questions based on the public testimony?
I will have a question for the applicant regarding the commercial status of the property owner based on the website that was just discussed, but we can wait for the applicant to respond to that.
Okay, I wanted to say something about that. I believe I asked that question to start off with. This would be, in this zone, an illegal use if it wasn't for the temporary use permit. This is not on the allowed list of uses for this particular zone. It's only the use of the temporary use permit that allows this to even be considered and proceed. Now, like I said, we've had the temporary use permit around a while, and it's been rather effective in what it's been doing up to this point, which is smaller events at wineries, but more importantly, businesses moving into town and trying out whether or not their business model works. And then sometimes, actually, about 8 or 10 times now, securing a permanent use permit. So this is a different approach in a zone where this would otherwise be an illegal use. Most of the temporary use permits that have been issued have been for uses that would be legal in the place that they were practicing whatever it is. It's just sort of a, we dabble our feet in the water and see if this is going to work use. So this is potentially a hole that was left on purpose, frankly, that somebody could try something that was a little odd in a place that was a little different. In other words, we just didn't list the use on the list. Okay. So that may be something that the council wishes to repair in the future, but right now we've got what we've got. We need to proceed under the regulations and rules we've got. The Planning Commission isn't something that can make up the rules, we can only apply them. It's called quasi-judicial. So we're sort of like 4, usually 5, junior judges, if you will. So with that, if there's any questions, well, let's move on. If there's any questions given voice to you, the commissioners, by the testimony, now's the time to ask them.
I will have a question for the applicant.
Please.
It appears to me, based on the testimony, to the applicant, not 100X Hospitality, the applicant. No, you're not the applicant. The applicant is Caroline Hernandez.
Caroline is not here. I'm here in her place.
You represent the property owner? You represent Outstanding in the Field?
Outstanding in the Field is
Outstanding
the
in
one
the Field,
who
who is
submitted
the
the
applicant.
application.
So, okay, I'd like, actually, sorry. Monte Olivos, who represents Monte Olivos here?
That's the one that
Good.
said she didn't,
Good,
but hey.
this is helpful. One of the things that does trouble me is it appears to me, if this is true, is that Monte Olivos is currently holding itself out as a venue for all sorts of events without referencing that those events are subject to discretionary temporary use permit and not allowed under normal zoning. Is that correct?
That is not our website. We didn't know that until it was brought up to us. That they were saying those were on there.
Well, I assume that people who are involved in hospitality, and I'm very familiar with venues because I have a son getting married in about a month, so I'm very aware of Napa venues for events. But somebody had to give permission to that website or the hospitality promoter to list Monte Olivos as a venue that's available without restriction. And so I want to just check with you, is that Monte Olivos' position that it is advertising a venue without restriction?
No.
So is Monte Olivos willing to go to anybody who is offering it as a venue and to explain that it is not a venue that's generally available?
Absolutely.
That it's only available subject to discretionary permits?
Absolutely.
Okay. That helps
Okay, I think
explain
Director
my
DeRosa
question.
wants to put her oar in the water here.
Okay.
Yeah, so to correct the record, in the A20, we actually don't have a problem with the A20 zoning because I know event centers we're hearing in this example, are not compatible, particularly in this situation. In the A20 zone, an event center is not allowed by right, and it is neither allowed as a conditional use permit. So there is no discretionary pathway for them to try and legalize this as a permanent
I understand. I was asking more for the TUP. It's available as a discretionary TUP,
Yeah, but
right?
what they could do is apparently they could come forward once a month and say, we would like a temporary use permit for event X. And that would be their limit for the month.
And I'm going to have a suggestion when we get around to discussion of how to address that.
Well, I think that may be something that the council wishes to consider in the
That's right.
future. But right now, once again, we've got what we've got.
I understand, but I haven't thought on that. But anyway, that's helpful to know. I think it would be useful because I think it appears to me, by the way, not related to this event, but appears to me that the property owner is advertising the property as a generally available venue for special events, notwithstanding what we've just been discussing in terms of TUPs, CUPs, and A20. So I just want to be sure you understand that as as something that is of concern.
And just an FYI too, since we've found out that it was being publicly advertised, it was taken down.
Okay, well, I'm somehow
We have
saw-
a different
I-
business relation with distinct locations where they plan events for us,
Yeah,
for family events.
I
mean,
was
it
just
could be-
on a website called something that still had it on there, so
Yeah.
it's hard to stop websites from grabbing what you have previously. All right, well, I appreciate your answer. That answers my question.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant at this point?
No, I share Commissioner Warner's concern, particularly as I understand it, this property is not producing wine, it's producing olive oil, which is fantastic, and I applaud the property owner's restoration of the olive orchard. However, these events are not promoting olive oil. So I am concerned about any, temporary use permit, any ongoing application for any use permits for events that are not private and family events. I would be concerned after this event if anything comes forward to the Planning Commission.
Any questions of the applicant at this point? No? Okay. If you want to rebut, you may do so. Please keep it.
Yeah, thank you. No rebuttal. I just wanted to let the neighbors know we appreciate you guys coming out and speaking up. And it wasn't mentioned in the presentation, but total music performance 5-hour night equates to 40 minutes. So over the whole entire night, there'll only be 40 minutes of performances on the main stage or on the stage. As well as we are willing to create a hotline for the neighbors on that road that they can call at any time during the event and reach someone in our command center so that if they need to leave, they can say, hey, we're leaving at 8:30. We want to make sure the road's clear and we can clear a path for them. So we're totally willing and able to do that. It's something we do on a lot of our events. We create a hotline. It's only given to certain neighbors so that they can communicate with the event, but we're willing to offer that as well.
Hopefully, given all the discussion about fire, not too hot. Thank you. Well, this is not the point to do point and counterpoint. You've had your say, they've had their say. Now we're going to take it in and do our number. Okay?
Thank you all.
There's no other questions of the applicant or staff? Close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Who wants to start? Yes, Vice Chair Warner.
Start. So I want to go through the wildfire and safety issues, and I am very pleased on those particular issues. Those aren't my only issues, that the applicant, the sponsor, 100X Hospitality, and Outstanding in the Field are willing to commit to be named on the temporary use permit, all three, for enforcement purposes, and to also, at a suitable time prior to the event, to do a field demonstration of the emergency evacuation and the transportation, particularly with the understanding that our fire department, our fire experts will have a chance to review that and may recommend a change in the event, including possible termination. I also very much appreciate, and I had forgotten about this, as a lawyer I'm generally familiar with this, but 100X Hospitality, any event sponsor today has cancellation insurance. I mean, my gosh, when you went through COVID, the most important thing was to come out of that with cancellation insurance if you're an event sponsor. So I very much appreciate, because I think I also would like to see an ability, without being arbitrary, but for the city, through its wildfire experts, to be able to recommend at a suitable date that we could work out prior to the event, maybe a couple days, if there's extreme fire danger, that the event would be canceled. But it couldn't be just arbitrarily. It would be based on the standards for safety, whether we talk about what you said of what are you going to do with a warning versus a watch, things like that. I do have a concern about what appears to me to be the property owners engaging in a fairly general offering of the venue for multiple events, notwithstanding that that's supposed to be not something that's done very often. And I'd like to also suggest that one of the conditions I'd like to see is that that this TUP, if we were to grant it, would be subject to a very clear condition that it is not a precedent for any future TUPs for any events, that those would have to be considered on their own merits in accordance with our code. But secondly, that if this event occurs, if it's approved, that there be a report by all three applicants, those on the TUP, of how it went, with an opportunity to take into account any neighbor complaints that occur about how it went. In other words, in my opinion, this is skating on very thin ice for this type of event. I love events. I love Upper Valley, Napa being a center for events, particularly in the vineyards. And I'm probably biased, and you might want to disqualify me because I've been to in the field event, which was lovely and very well run and very logistically easy. That was just over here off Sulphur Springs Road I think it was last summer, at the Taplin area residence. So that said, I think these are folks who are professional in terms of event sponsorship and management, but I'm concerned that this not be a precedent for anything in the future. And I'm also concerned that this does appear to be, from the property owner's perspective, an event that might be considered to be part of their commercial business plans. And I'm concerned about that for the same reason Commissioner Furduck is. So by and large, what I would do is I would ask for the conditions that we talked about for wildfire, which are 2 of them. And I'd like to be sure that the 3 entities are filing are on the permit. I'm also toying with the idea that the entities name the city as an additional insured on their certificate. I'm not wedded to that. It's normal process, but we are a city. We're sponsoring an event. If something really bad happened, as a lawyer, I know you sue the deep pocket, and we are a deep pocket. Notwithstanding the 100X is probably a deep pocket too with our insurance. I'm not wedded to that. But I also want to be sure that we make clear that this is not a precedent for future permits, that there be a report back by the sponsors and the applicant and the property owner on how it went, so we can review how it went, and neighbors can also have a chance to comment on how it went. So those are my comments. I'll leave it to the rest of you in terms of any other thoughts.
Commissioner Lopez.
So from what I hear, my concerns are more like all the neighbors way up the road find out last minute, and then their plans are kind of, I think that also, I don't want to exclude the property from probably being used for different events, like weddings or whatever. I mean, having beautiful old olive trees and that kind of landscape is beautiful, but the size and it has to be brought up and like I said, it has to be something sparingly that can't be commercial, but different types of event, there shouldn't be a problem if we have that small town courtesy of letting all the neighbors know first, so especially when they're that large, because they might have something going on. They might need to do something, or at least they get a good heads up to, I don't know, take a small vacation during the one day or whatever. But obviously it has to be something unique and small. It has to be like the small city that I was born in here. We always kind of check in with each other. We can't just kind of, ram something down because, this is my property and now I got to do it when there's neighbors up down the street that have a different plan. So that's my concern, is also that maybe apart from not putting it out there commercial, because I don't think it was meant in that situation, but that it can be appreciated depending on what's going. And I have to agree, after looking at the schedule, there's not a whole lot of singing, probably good quality singing, but it's up to 40 minutes. But I think my more concern is how it was brought up and how the neighbors are contesting almost last minute. That's the part that I think needs to change with a lot of our events probably here in the city.
Anything to add, Commissioner?
I'll just agree with all the points that my fellow commissioners have brought up. I think that given the access road size is probably the biggest issue. You know, sound and noise, I think this event has kept it, you know, a little bit to a minimum, which is great, but it's really about size, particularly for this event. But in consideration for any future events, I think I would not go this big ever again. And certainly notice to the neighbors is an absolute must. You know, and consideration. But I concur. I think I appreciate all the, you know, considerations that the applicants are agreeing to as we discuss this, and access that they give to the neighbors the day of the event in terms of considerations. So I don't have anything further to say.
Well, as the man said, quantity has a quality all its own. And this is where this one stumbles for sure. We probably wouldn't have come to the commission if this was a much smaller event. In the meantime, this is, in my mind, not the kind of thing that we were expecting the TUP to do. It's an unanticipated result. Once again, given that, there's nothing we can do about it right now except maybe suggest that Director DeRosa put it on her list of things that needs repair, which I think she probably would have done if we didn't say anything at all anyway about it. The road is clearly the problem here. I mean, if it was 24 feet wide with 2-foot shoulders, the beef would be a lot less. This is a safety risk. This is a safety hazard. And it's a hazard that is incumbent on all of us to do something about. I am, however, reluctant to stop the bus this late in the game.
Is that a pun?
It actually was.
Sorry,
so
I couldn't resist.
I like my fellow commissioners' idea of wanting to report on the event, clearly state that this is a one-time, that would probably be in the preamble to the resolution. And I rather like the idea of a city being an other insured, because if I remember right, the city actually requires that for all kinds of events in town where they're involved. And this we're definitely at risk here. We'll have to ask our attorneys if that's possible, but we'll consider it, I think. If we approve that, we're putting the city at risk, clearly. And that's one reason I did ask the question, what do you guys do on watch and on warning? And I got nothing, right? That, not helpful. And as far as this place being advertised for use as a general gathering spot, that's clearly verboten under the A20. It was never allowed. Nobody's allowed to do that. There are certain exemptions to giving if you're a winery, right? But even that's controlled. So this is not a use or an exercise that I think we even imagined as we move forward with the TUPs. This is a hole, and we're probably going to plug the hole. But right now we got what he got. I'm unwilling, like I said, to stop the bus this late in the game, but I want all the protection the city can possibly get on this one, because it's a risky event. I mean, all of us here that are residents could step outside on our porches and look at the fire. that way, and that way. So I'm real reluctant here. But I think we probably should consider proceeding. And with that, unless there's anything else anyone wants to say, yes, Vice Chair Warner.
I'm just, I'm sharing everything you said, and I do think, and this is a little bit of my experience in working with our elected officials and our fire experts on what are called the state fire road standards that got updated in the last couple years. And one of the things that was a condition that the county obtained from CAL FIRE was the ability to go look at the roads and not simply say you can't do anything unless the roads are upgraded, because of course the county and the state don't have a lot of money to upgrade roads. So I'm comfortable, and I'm not at all sure this event goes forward. So I'm not sure that the sponsor can meet these conditions that we're suggesting, but they are agreeing to try to work it out. And I think the agreement in terms of demonstrating that the road is adequate for ingress and egress, and demonstrating the turnaround of the buses and the ability of the fire vehicles to get up there at the same time, that makes me comfortable, because our fire department, John Sorensen, Chief Sorensen, Alec Vidler, can evaluate that very directly, and I think under the standards for safety. So that's one thing. I would like to see the city named as an additional insured. And I am appreciative of the applicant and sponsors agreeing that even with all that, we may get to a fire risk day or a couple of days where the city just says, this is too risky. And I appreciate that the city, with its fire experts and CAL FIRE, are probably better at making that decision than 100X Hospitality or the property owner. So I'm not gainsaying that they don't have an answer on that. I'm deferring it to the experts, and I think having that discretion will protect us.
Okay, so let me recap. I see 4 additional conditions. A, clearly state this a one-time event, and any future applications are independent.
Yes.
Right? But that might go in the preamble of the resolution rather than the resolution itself, maybe in the recitals.
Yep.
A report of the event at the end of the day.
Yes.
That they do the ingress-egress test.
Yes.
Right? And that if possible, a city becomes an other insured.
Yes, plus the ability of the city prior to the event, if it's a high fire risk.
I think that's already, they already more or less said that they would agree to
Yes.
pull the event if the city says.
But that needs to be in the resolution.
Okay, we can add it, I suppose. Since they've already agreed to it, that should not be a problem, I would think. Okay, and that would be if the city says it's too dangerous to hold this event because da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And I imagine the city would be very careful on that because they don't want to be sued by your insurance company, I'm sure.
It would be their insurer, I think, who would do it.
Yeah, and they'd be suing REMA, but there it is. Okay.
Chair,
yes,
can I have
Lopez.
can we take a small break? I kind of have to run. Just a few minutes.
5 minutes. I can start without the two staffers, but I can't start without the secretary. Commission secretary has to be here. Yeah, it did say 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes. We can do it without her. Can't do it without the secretary. Hmm? You can read it in the bylaws. Are we on, Secretary Gamero? The official record is. Ooh, I just told everybody how old I am by saying videotape. At least I didn't say Betamax. We are live. Thank you. We were discussing what to do, and we had actually gotten down to. I think we're about to make a motion. We've gotten down to considering making a motion. And I was going to say that the ones we had added, or considering added, and if somebody got a motion to make, we see the attorney scribbling as fast as he can. Should get you an IBM Selectric.
I should have brought it. I've got at least 2 of these, I think.
Well, I think the others we can word in general, right? Especially the one about, clearly state one-time report, one-time event. All right, do we have a motion do we put up the motion? There we go.
Chair Pont, can I just correct one thing for the record? I think this may make the residents feel a little better because it might have been an oversight. We do have condition approval number 8 that does require the applicant to notify immediate neighbors regarding the details of the upcoming events on their own letterhead, and that require.
Yeah, and at one point they said they had notified the 6 homes that were within the range of their event, right?
No. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so the city sent public notice within a certain radius, but
postmarked by June 9th, okay.
Yeah, but I just want, because they may not have seen this, it was buried in the resolution. So their letter has to be, yes, correct, postmarked no later than June 9th. Details shall include the date, time, and duration of the event, as well as notes regarding any potential disturbances such as traffic and noise. Include a non-emergency police department number for reference. The notice must be consistent with the conditions of approval set forth in the resolution, and a draft of the notice must be reviewed by staff prior to mailing to the residents.
And that's in there now. That his suggestion is a post-analysis, if I get it right.
Yes, but I don't,
okay.
Based on Mr. Lopez's comment, I don't know if it was, so if he didn't know, then they might not have known either that that's built into what they need to do to meet many conditions of approval before this event can happen.
Okay.
I just wanted to put that on the record.
I just think, Hector's idea was more like you show up with a pot of chili and, a bottle of red and let's talk about this.
That could work too, but.
I start in? Okay. This is the resolution we have in front of us. Am I correct, Ms. DeRosa?
Correct.
We have no other than what we've been discussing. But I believe, Ms. DeRosa, you were going to do something in the recitals language, perhaps in a...
Can you start with 1 and then work your way to 2 and then add from there?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Okay. I move that we that we recommend for the reasons described in this presentation, in the staff report. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, one, determine that the project is exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15304E, which exempts the minor temporary use of land having negligible or no permanent effects on the environment. And number two, adopt the attached resolution, and we're going to talk about some of the modifications of that in a second, approving 2UP 25-005 to allow for the private ticketed Andrea Bocelli dinner and entertainment event to be held at the Monte Olivos estate located at 2500 Spring Mountain Road, St. Helena, within the 20-acre agricultural zoning district, to be held on June 20th, 2025, with a maximum attendance of 600 persons, subject to the conditions of approval enumerated therein. And I would like to go through a couple of the changes in the resolution. And Ms. DeRosa, were you going to do one for maybe number 5 of the recitals?
Yes. I recommend that number 5 specifically state this specific TUP approval is not a precedent for other events, period.
Okay, that's one.
Let me ask, do we want to include there the reporting requirement after the event, or would we?
That should be a condition of approval.
I think that would be a condition,
All right.
yeah.
So I'm going to go through now a couple changes to the conditions of approval on the planning department on D, paragraph D. First, in sub 1, it should be amended to read, and I'll read it out. The project shall be in conformance with all city ordinances, rules, regulations, and policies in effect at the time of issuance, including without limitation, demonstrating in the field to the satisfaction of the city and the city's fire department that the applicant has demonstrated that it can implement an adequate wildfire emergency evacuation and response.
May I suggest a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Fire and PD?
Fire and PD?
PD.
Oh, that would
Police
be
department.
fine. I'm happy that the
There's a
city's
guy
fire
in the back
department
who
and
would
police department.
Probably be pissed if I didn't say that.
Yeah, that the applicant has demonstrated in the field that it can implement an adequate wildfire emergency evacuation and response. And that would be added to 1. Then added to 7, 7 would be amended to read, the city reserves the right to request a day of inspection to verify that all the required components are implemented as outlined in this approval. The city reserves the right at any time to cancel the permit if it determines the event presents unacceptable wildfire risk under wildfire risk and safety standards.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's, I think what you want is you want the city to, under conditions where there is unacceptable risk, to call for the cancellation of the event.
Let me.
You want something that the city says, stop. I don't think you want to pull their permit. I think you want something that the city says, stop, and that would trigger
That
their
would be
insurance.
canceling the event, I think is what you're
Yeah.
saying. Let me try this on you as a substitute.
Yeah, the only thing that didn't make sense was the any time.
Right.
That would give you the ability tomorrow, if there was a wildfire, to cancel it. It needs to be within a window that we talked about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Let me try.
So you want something that,
Let me try.
so within a certain time period,
No, let me.
12 hours, 24 hours?
No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
But let me try it because I'm responsive to what both
Okay.
of you said. Let me provide another version of that. The city reserves, this is number 7 on the conditions of approval. The city reserves the right to request a day of inspection to verify that all the required components are implemented as outlined in this approval. The city reserves the right to cancel the event if it determines that an unacceptable wildfire risk under wildfire risk and safety standards exists.
Direct the applicant to cancel the event rather than the city cancel the event?
It's really, either way works for me, if you think it'd be better
I'm
to
not
have
sure
that.
which way works best for their insurance.
I think the city has to cancel it. I
Okay.
That's
Okay.
right. So again, shall I try that again to be sure
Sure.
everybody
I
gets
think-
it?
I think he agreed to your wording,
Yeah.
so.
And it's added to the existing 7. I'm not going to read that existing 7 over. The city reserves the right to cancel the event if it determines the event presents unacceptable wildfire risk under wildfire risk and safety standards.
I would like to add, based on conditions, like wildfire current conditions like we talked about. Like
Yeah,
Right.
that's-
watch or
Current wildfire on the current.
because it's on the
Yeah, yeah, current. I'll try it again. And by the way, after providing notice to the applicant, right? too,
While we're
so-
dinking with this, do you
Yep.
want it to be only for fire? Let's say there's an earthquake.
Well, I don't know, I mentioned this during our recess, but traditionally, when permitting officials, traditionally in your language, we have the right to do that. So I don't know what's written in your code.
Chair Pont, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Would you like him to come up to the podium and speak
Oh,
for the
he's not-
record? Otherwise, we
not-
can't,
we're
we don't
not-
have that as part of the
We're
record. Thank
working
you.
this out, so that's good.
We're wordsmithing this thing on the fly, as it
Yeah,
were.
so traditionally, and again, safety #1 concern. So
Yeah.
if your emergency management team said, there's a tornado coming through, you cannot have these people at the site, we need to cancel the event, we would cancel the event, right? And so
Okay.
that's very standard practice for us. That's why we have cancellation insurance. We also have it for artist non-appearance if Andrea couldn't attend for a reason. So for us, it would need to be a real and present risk, not an assumed potential risk.
Yeah,
Okay.
you make a good point, and we want to conform it to what you have traditionally, and let me try this, because I think we're getting there. To be broader, so it kind of envelopes everything you said, but it's a current risk. The city reserves the right to cancel the event if it determines the event presents a current acceptable public safety risk.
I think that works.
Okay, because it's broad, covers any eventuality. Okay.
Right.
There we go.
That helps, and I haven't added the additional insured. I don't know where we'd add that, or the
The report on
report.
the event. That'd be another condition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one other point would be, or two other points would be cancel or reschedule. And then the second would be very common terminology in cancellation insurance is an act of God. So throwing in
Right.
an act of God, which would be a wildfire or tornado
Tornado or earthquake.
or
yeah.
earthquake or high lightning or any of those types of situations, which we would cancel for.
You can probably write off tornado on your list.
So,
Right, I know, but-
you'd like me to add to the public safety risk or act of God?
We're okay with that.
I think that's included.
I think that's included in public safety
in the
risk. because
standard,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think you need to repeat.
It's
what's
good
already
it's good for the insurance language.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
they like act of God.
Yeah, because that means you couldn't control it, we couldn't control it. That's what insurance is for. So that would help us.
Okay.
So, want me to try one?
Something to add, Ms. O'Neill? Okay. You're trying to keep up with the changes.
Sorry.
Right.
I talk fast too, apologies.
No, I think we've covered that one then. haven't we?
Okay, the report on the event, do you want to include that someplace? And you can even make that, in a format and a structure to be determined, right?
So,
Rather than try to detail what would be in that at the current time, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
we could do this on
Well, it would
condition
be,
16.
could be the next condition, whatever that is.
And this, yes.
That's,
20
next
20
one is the
20
neighbors.
22, and you move everybody down one,
Okay, so 22,
Why don't you let
okay,
them to figure out where it fits,
okay, good.
Okay. And
What about the?
other insured?
Yeah, we could put that as 23,
Well,
where would you
I
think you want that?
kind of would like the city attorney to have a run at that, to figure out whether or not it's
And we can delegate, we can
possible.
approve subject to these,
city attorney to
this language
explore,
being
bloody,
worked out
bloody, bloody.
and acceptable to
If
the
that's okay to you
applicant.
guys?
The additional insured provision?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that additional insured's no problem. Outstanding in the Field already has it for the city of Napa, or the county of Napa for events they do. We do it in every city and every county that we work with. So.
Okay, so you're copacetic with that, just.
100%.
Okay.
That's not, it doesn't even need, that would be standard practice.
And we would like Monte Olivos also to
There
be
it
part
is.
of that, be additional insured by Monte Olivos.
Additionally insured the city on your policy?
Okay.
That's-
So
that's
we
good.
got them all now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Can we just review the review one more time when that
Sure.
takes
Yeah,
place? Is that a
we'll make sure-
post-event review, or? So I think there was some confusion
How
between
much of
that.
this you got down, Jackie? Can you read back so we can?
The post-event review, Maya, did you have a suggested language, or I could suggest something? I don't know where it would go, but.
I'll just read mine, what I came up with, and we can compare notes. Why don't we specify, within 3 weeks following the event, the applicant is to prepare a report on operations and deliver that report to the community development director.
Fine with us.
Didn't we also ask for community feedback or neighborhood feedback?
Yeah, and I think we could say, including the applicant obtaining neighborhood feedback on the event.
Or including any feedback from neighbors during or thereafter.
I see the survey building
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah.
Did you like this? Great. Absolutely wonderful. Fantastic. 3 choices.
Yeah, I think we want to be inclusive, as Commissioner Furdak says, and I think it can be inclusive. I don't think we want to have a back and forth where basically we have, a big set of public comments.
No, that's why
But the-
I
Yeah.
think,
the applicant would
structure to
be-
be determined by,
That's right.
Yeah, we could just say that, within 3 weeks of the event, the applicant to solicit feedback and give them their discretion of how they'd like to do that. They could mail them a card with comments,
right.
but I don't want to be
Yeah, but
prescriptive.
I don't want them to have to survey the city or something.
Correct, no.
That's right.
But I think a mail out with a card, they don't have to host a neighborhood meeting or anything like
Work it
that.
out
Okay.
with staff.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah, we can also just create an email address that they can
And you
submit.
should be able to use the same mailing list you're going to have to get the letter out on the 9th.
Correct.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, that's
We're,
right.
we're comfortable with that.
You can even include in the letter of the 9th, we're going to be surveying you after, looking for your comments.
Right.
So where would we put the additional insured provision?
That could. it
Be
would
done
still-
by staff after talking with the,
Yeah, we'll check with the city attorney and then we'll just add it to the end of our
Yeah.
planning
It's number
conditions.
22A.
and the other
right?
process item is, and I'm not so sure this is important, I mentioned it as having all 3 entities that are part of the event be on the permit. But what do you think? I mean, I don't want to burden that.
I don't, well.
But right now,
It's a standard structure for our permit request, right?
but-
It's one person who's responsible or one entity that's responsible. Because if you split it up between multiple entities, what are you going to do? I
But
mean,
right now, am I right, the property owner is not on the permit?
But the property owner has given their permission, so when the person signs the request for the permit, it basically says, you got permission from the property owner to do this, right?
Does it say that?
And if they don't.
I believe
they
there's an
can't.
owner's signature line.
I believe there's also a letter from ownership in the TUP application.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is for the Krug event, that I know for sure.
Yeah.
So the owner, meaning the property owner, is bound, and then we can enforce the permit with the property owner, and, because I look on the sponsors, yet 100X Hospitality is just a sponsor.
Okay,
event
let's put it this way.
coordinator.
When Philip goes out and red tags a project, even if it's being done by XYZ Construction Company, it behooves the owner of the property to act as well.
So you're comfortable?
I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, then I'm comfortable.
If I may, I'm actually looking at the application that was submitted. It does have a footnote that says additional property owners or applicants' information shall be attached to the application. Right now, the applicant information is limited to Caroline Hernandez with an email address. We do have the trustees of the property listed. However, the property owner did not sign the application, and 100X is not included in this application, so I may recommend that they amend this application to satisfy Vice Chair Warner's concerns.
Let me ask, the trustees are the property owner, aren't they?
Yes, the property owner information is listed as Jorge Hernandez, trustees of the Hernandez estate.
So it would be the trust that's the actual
Owner. I think we should be okay, because if the trustee is the property owner, that's the property owner, right? I share your concern, but it sounds to me like they did sign on behalf of the property owner if the property owner is the trust.
Are you satisfied with that?
Yeah.
But that's a good catch. I'm satisfied with that.
Assuming that's the trustee controls the trust, right? So,
Okay, have
you got everything?
Yep.
Is it clear? Do you want it read back to you? I mean, Director DeRosa already did a yeoman's job of doing that.
I'm okay if everybody else is
Okay, so
okay.
we-
And this
we-
part of
we-
the
we-
cleanup of the permit,
we-
the staff can clean up the permit. We have that all on the
Okay, we've
the
got.
record.
We've got a motion that's structured a bit oddly, but there it is.
Right.
Do we have a second on the motion?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Secretary Gamero, could you tally the votes, please?
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Furdak,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes, this item is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I would ask your indulgence. Do we want to move on to 5.3, or do we want to take a short break? Either way, we're going to have, if we just do 5.3, then we have 5.4 and the new business. So that would split the agenda.
Let's
Depending
move
on-
on.
Yeah, move on.
Let's
I'm-
move
I'm
on,
fine.
okay. 5.3, request by Mondavi and Family to allow for the Weekend in Napa Valley event featuring the same guy to be held at Krug Winery, 2800 Main Street, June 21st and 22nd, 2025. Before we get rolling, I'd like to call the public hearing to order and ask if any commissioners had any ex parte contact on this item?
No.
No.
No? Okay. Then we need the staff report. Director DeRosa, please.
Thank you, Chair Pont, members of the Planning Commission, Director Rosa here again. I am going to be presenting this item to you tonight. It's the second part of the Weekend in Napa Valley with Andrea Bocelli. This two-day event will be held at 2800 Main Street. Can we have the next slide, please? Sure, we're all familiar, but just for orientation, this property is located on the northern city limits on the corner of Deer Park Road and Highway 29, the historic Charles Krug Winery, and they have historically done many events here, and I will be covering some of the background and the proposal in the next couple of slides. Thank you. So I know we talked slightly about this in the prior case, but it is unusual to bring a temporary use permit to the Planning Commission, but because the code does allow us to do that on a case-by-case basis when there are factors such as events over 400 people, as we, again, just discussed, we thought this would be worthwhile and also provide some transparency to the community of what's being proposed. So this event will be ticketed for up to 4,562 guests. There will also be 484 event-related staff on the performance days. There's a very thoughtfully and thorough operations plan that's attached to the staff report that has site plans that cover parking, the rideshare, the shuttles, the food and beverage village, the Great Lawn, guest seating, and where the stage is going to be located in details. And they also have a contingency plan for overflow parking at the Behringer Winery. And lastly, they also have a noise permit issued. we did spend a lot of time with them talking about the traffic management due to the attendance numbers. And so this is actually something that they're very familiar, the Krug Mondavi team, of getting the encroachment permits from Napa County. In this particular one, they did receive that permit on May 15th, and we have evidence of that. The traffic management plan was required for the issuance of that permit and approved by Napa County. The traffic control contract with the Highway Patrol has also been secured. And then there's also a series of temporary control signs that are included in the traffic management plan, as well as portable message signboards that will be in the right-of-way. And they are to be installed by June 16th and removed by June 23rd. And then because what's, I think, different this year is we have the Vine Trail actively there. So I appreciate that their team was thoughtful about making sure they had a minimum of 2 flagger positions there to ensure safe travels from both pedestrians and bicyclists. And then related to parking management, we have of ticket holder. They have various zones for those types of ticket holders. There are right now about 800 attendees expected to arrive via a shuttle. And that's, again, as you had heard, there's a private shuttle program that they've orchestrated through 100X. And then the parking site plan has been lined out and dimensioned to make sure that they have the capacity to accommodate all guests. And just a thumbnail sketch of what's included in the operations plan. It's everything from event host responsibilities, where's the seating, the food and beverage provisions, what are the various travel packages, the event schedule, the layout of the event, the production and security plan, traffic and parking plan, site operations, emergency services, first aid, and staffing overview. And this is to say, just as a side note, this is nothing new for the Mondavi team. I know that, as you know, they do host multiple events there. They have a very excellent location to do that just because of the spaciousness of it. And so we are very familiar working with them even on the large-scale events, and putting together an operations plan is something that is not foreign to them. But this one, we wanted to make sure that we had checked every box of coordination. So we had some coordination meetings on Zoom where we had, not just, the planning and building official and some city departments, but we also had Napa County Highway Patrol there talking through what are they going to need, because what we didn't want to have happen is that they think it's business as usual, and then because we had such tight turnarounds to get everything, we wanted to make sure before they submitted, they knew right off the bat what was needed. So, because we really didn't have time to go back and have a version 2.0. So I appreciate everybody working really hard to get staff what we needed. And then the operations plan is provided in the conditions of approval, the specifics of that. The economic impact of this, although we don't have the numbers specifically for St. Helena, the overall Napa Valley economic impact is estimated between 18 million and 25 million. As they mentioned it with the prior item, there are a number of hotel packages here in St. Helena that will be very much benefiting from the revenue and the guest surge in guests that are coming into the city to spend money here. And so in order for staff to approve a temporary use permit, we have to make these 2 findings, which I know we covered in the prior one, so I really won't dwell on it. But I will say the most important is, first, we have to make sure it complies with the standards in 1722-250, and then we have to make a finding that maintenance or operation of the temporary activity would not be detrimental to public health, safety, welfare of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed temporary activity. And so we find that, so the site is zoned winery. It is used primarily for commercial, industrial, and agricultural uses. And the proposed entertainment duration is over 2 consecutive days, which complies with the code regulations. And we do have staff here that I've specifically asked to be here for this meeting to help answer questions. Includes the police department, fire department, public works, our building department. We have a representative from the highway patrol. Of course, we have the C. Mondavi staff, and then, as you know, the 100X entertainment staff are here as well. So in concluding my presentation, the recommended action, as you can see here, is to determine the project is exempt from CEQA guidelines section 15323 and adopt the attached resolution approving TUP 25007 to allow for the Andrea Bocelli entertainment event to be held at the Krug Winery located at 2800 Main Street, St. Helena, within the winery zoning district, to be held on June 21st and 22nd, 2025, pursuant to the conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation. And like I said, I'm available for questions, and we have the whole team here as well.
Any questions of staff?
And this would just be a
Vice Chair
staff. I have no questions of the team here, because the team, you've really represented the team well in the staff report. And just to confirm that California Highway Patrol and our own police department have approved the traffic management plan?
They have.
Okay. Those are the only questions I had.
There were some last-minute, were there some last-minute additions to the resolution?
We worked with them on updating, well, there was the operations plan. They had to swap out the traffic management plan to make sure the signs were the right size. And then we did add a condition of approval that requires that they pay for the staff time for the police department be covered. Since we did find, that was a good question that was asked, before the meeting, is like, well, one of the events has police officers being covered, why not this one? And so I thought it was all CHP, but yeah, we do have our own officers, so that we did add a condition for that as well. And maybe there's one more I'm forgetting, but yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, staff, at this point? Does the applicant wish to address the commission? You do not have to if you do not want to.
They have a presentation, but it's up to you if you want to see it. No.
Does any commissioner want to see their presentation?
I'd like to just have the presentation be provided for the record without presentation. Just to file
we do
for the
that?
record.
Just to speak to the commission?
Not to speak to the commission, but just to again, accept their presentation for the record.
Okay.
No, just provide it for the record without needing to present it.
We can upload it to the agenda website.
Sure.
Okay. If you guys are cool with that, we're cool with that.
That will make it part of the record.
Otherwise, you have to do it with flashlights and shadow bunnies.
Right.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I don't have any questions of the applicant. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant? At this time, I would like to invite anybody to provide public testimony on this, either for or against the project. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak either for or against the project who is not on the applicant team? Seeing none? Okay. And that means we drop down to, unless somebody has an objection, closing the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Bring it back to the commission for discussion.
I
Vice Chair Warner.
support the applicant's proposal without change, and I support the form of the resolution.
Anybody else?
Likewise, it's a terrific venue for this kind of event. I've been to many of them there.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yeah, no, I agree. They have the space, it's been done many times there before, so I have no issue with that one.
I just want to say I agree with my fellow commissioners. This is the place for this kind of event. I mean, they've had multiple events at this location, approaching this size or even larger. Great. Do we have a motion?
I'll take it on. I move
Chris,
that.
you're just so good at reading these
I
things.
know,
I just defer.
I move that the Planning Commission determine the project is exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15323, and number 2, adopt the attached resolution approving TUP 25-007 to allow for the Andrea Bocelli entertainment event to be held at the Krug Winery located at 2800 Main Street, St. Helena, within the winery zoning district, to be held on June 21st and June 22nd, 2025, pursuant to the conditions of approval.
Okay. You have a second?
I'll second.
A second. Secretary Gamero, take the roll, please.
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes.
Commissioner Furdeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes, thank you for all your hard work on this one. This item is concluded. And I would like to ask what happened to TUP 25006.
Oh, it's, one was being administratively
Okay. Because you got 5 and 7 right next to each other. Okay.
May I just approach really quick?
Oh, the presentation.
Well, this is the operations plan, but this lists all the travel package hotels.
Oh, I saw that. Thank you.
Okay. Now, are we moving on or are we taking a break?
Appreciate that.
You want to plunge on?
I'm
Okay.
happy to move on.
Next, public hearing. Request by Brodie Group on behalf of the property owners, Fulton Junction Partners LLC, for approval of a general plan amendment and a zoning map amendment to change the property's land use designation from service commercial to agriculture and to subsequently rezone the site from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture to accommodate the future construction of a single-family home at 1030 Fulton Lane. Open the public hearing and ask if any commissioners had any ex parte contact on this item. Seeing none, staff report, please. Director DeRosa, who will give it over to Jackie, but let's start with the...
Yes, she catches the balls real well, so I'd like to present Senior Planner O'Neill to address this item for the commission. Thank you.
And similar to my prior item, my applicant has a robust presentation to share with you this evening, so I will make this an exercise in brevity. Thank you for the introduction of the item. So, as discussed, this is a request for general plan amendment and zoning map amendment to change a property's land use designation from service commercial to agriculture, and accordingly the zoning from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture to accommodate the future construction of a single-family home and ADU. As required by our zoning code, this was first reviewed by the City Council at their September 10th, 2024 meeting, and at their discretion, they ordered the general plan amendment application to be further processed and referred this application back to the Planning Commission. Approval of the requests would result in modifications to the general plan land use diagram and the City of St. Helena zoning map. So some background on this property. This is an approximately 39,000 square foot property with a general plan designation of service commercial. It is located within the urban limit line. This parcel is the only commercially zoned property north of Fulton Lane and east of the railroad tracks, and the site has been largely vacant since 2010. I want to go into something that's in the staff report. So when the city first adopted the first comprehensive general plan in 1975, the site, as well as the surrounding parcels to the north and east, were designated for commercial uses. In 1993, the general plan update changed the land use designation for the surrounding sites to the north and this incorrectly says east, to the north and west to agriculture. However, the subject site at 1030 Fulton, no, it's east, to the north and east to agriculture. However, this site was still being actively utilized for commercial at that time. And as such, the land use designation remained service commercial. In 2019, the city adopted the current iteration of the general plan. In 2019, there was an active application for an office project for this site that was eventually approved by the Planning Commission. I spoke with Commissioner Anderson, and she gave me some of the history about that. So the assumption is that as there was an active application for a commercial use, the site remains service commercial. So it's been under that designation since 1975 and through the 2040 general plan update. can you go back one more? Okay, thank you. We can proceed. So here's the aerial view of the site. As you can see, it is flanked to the east by the railroad tracks, to the southwest by Fulton Lane. Today, it is vacant. There are some temporary structures there, like outdoor storage, things of that nature. The applicant did submit a conceptual site plan for their future plans on the site. I want to be very clear that this is not part of the request. This would be required to go through a design review application at a later date. So this is showing the current general plan map. The site is circled in red. This is the service commercial designation. And my apologies that these are not in the same scale. I was working with the GIS, so I had some limitations. So the proposed general plan map would change that site to agriculture. And likewise, the zoning map would be changed to be congruent and would become 20-acre agriculture. So I do want to touch on a couple things here. As we know, and this has come up several times in my brief time here, the A20 designation it has some nebulousness in it, and that any site that is less than a certain size is subject to the LR1A development standards. So although the site would be rezoned to 20-acre agriculture for all intents and purposes, the development standards that would apply to the site are the LR1A development standards in the code, and all of the design standards as well. This project is categorically exempt of CEQA Section 15303 Class 3, which covers new construction or conversion of small structures. This is something that we discussed with legal. The city attorney advised us that the reason that we can use the CEQA exemption is because it would cover the future development that would be allowed by the amendments, and it would be imperative for the applicant to use the same CEQA exemption for their future development purposes. Otherwise, this could fall under piecemealing, which is not allowed. As I just previously discussed, designated the site as agriculture would create consistency with the land use designations of the surrounding parcels, which are all designated A20. And rezoning the site is required to be consistent. So if we do a general plan amendment, we must follow with the zoning map amendment for consistency throughout. And the LR1A standards would allow for the construction of a single family home, which is the final desire of the property owner. So there's a lot of text on this, but based on the direction given by the City Council in September 2024, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the attached resolution and recommend back to the City Council that the proposed changes to General Plan Figure 2.1 and the City Zoning Map are in compliance with CEQA pursuant to Section 15303, and adopt an ordinance approving General Plan Amendment 2025-001 to adopt the General Plan Figure 2.1 and change the General Plan land use designation of this property at 1030 Fulton Lane from service commercial to agriculture, and subsequently adopt a zoning map amendment, ZMA 2025-001, to rezone the property from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture. The Commission may choose to make an alternative recommendation to the Council based on the outcome of this meeting that would require a continuance to a date certain so that staff could prepare an updated resolution. That concludes my staff report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions of staff at this point?
I have a couple questions that are just technical. The existing, you say the existing service commercial zoning expressly prohibits tourism-related development. I wondered if you have a site for that. Yeah, in the previous sentence, you said the intent was to do so, but I wondered if actually service commercial by the ordinance and by the zoning code prevents tourist-related developments that are permitted under the service commercial zoning.
Can you give me one moment to get to
Sure,
the zone?
sure. And it's not really going to affect the outcome here, but I wanted to be sure that when we cite a prohibition, we're considering what the site is for it. I could find it for you.
Yeah, that service commercial is
It's
supposed
on
to be
page
for-
226, the very last paragraph, general plan amendment request, last two sentences.
226. Oh, that's the other residence.
Of course, I don't have any
It says,
picture
the
numbers
intent
on
is
that.
for the service commercial land use designation to be primarily local residents serving in character. Strictly tourist serving retail uses are prohibited within this designation.
I believe this is language from the general plan.
Yes.
So,
And it's carried over. It's highly conserved. It was in the previous general plan.
and so strictly tourist serving wouldn't prohibit somewhat tourist serving.
That's exactly how it's been interpreted in the past.
Okay, because that satisfies me. This seemed like a fairly broad prohibition for anything that has any tourism impact.
I think at some point, some permits actually came down to percentages.
Okay.
You know, you
I'm
had
not
to have
gonna-
so many of this kinds of
Right.
item and so many of that kind of item.
Right,
It was
okay.
a little weird, but
All right. My other question is very simply in response to the one, I think the one commenter on here. I mean, this adds one house to plus ADU. You're thinking, yeah, okay. Two potential additions to arena allocation. Not huge change, but the commenter was reflecting on the general issue of big houses, single-family houses versus multiple-family housing, I think I interpreted, which is a fair comment, but nothing precludes a property owner from coming back and asking for a different zoning designation after this, correct?
that's correct.
Nothing's permanent in
Somebody
life.
could.
I'm really focusing on the fact that nothing's happened for 15 years on this site, so anything that happens that's development is probably good.
If I can say what I
Yeah.
believe happened, the previous permit for the office complex,
Right.
They were proceeding and lost their financing due to COVID, as much as anything else, and poof, disappeared.
That was
So
2018.
it's been empty
right?
since
Yep.
then.
Right.
So,
So I think it's good. I just wanted to be sure that if somebody comes forward and says, you know, I'd like to put a bunch of townhouses on this property,
and that's kind of true of any parcel in town.
That's
You could
right.
ask for a rezone.
that's right. I just wanted to emphasize that because I was reflecting the commenter's point, which is he seemed to be thinking this was permanent, and I don't see it as permanent if somebody comes in with a higher and better use, and they can ask for rezoning. Those are my only questions.
I think when somebody puts, what, 6,000 square feet at, $2,000 a square foot for high-end construction, if you put $12 million into construction, plus what, another 2 to buy the site, it's pretty committed for the next half century at least.
Stranger things have occurred.
Yes.
Right. Okay, those are my only questions.
Any,
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? I've got a couple. This is proposed to be an A20 parcel inside what is the urban limit line. Why are we doing that, especially since the general plan basically says we don't want you to do that?
So there's two things to consider here, and one is that one thing that we try to avoid when we're zoning or rezoning is spot zoning.
Yeah, but that's not in the general plan. That's just a general practice of planning and planners,
Absolutely.
not to do spot zoning. This is actually a general plan call, not to have A20 inside the urban limit line. And we're making A20 inside the urban limit line.
I believe we do have some A20 inside the urban
We
limit
do
line on
have
Grayson.
some, but it's rare and it's been grandfathered.
Yeah.
I mean,
Isn't it adjacent to this property?
No, those
There
are
was-
outside the limit line, but we
okay.
do have some on Grayson.
we have one piece on Grayson, and that's
think it's
the,
more.
yeah, that's the vineyard there. No, all the rest of it is outside. All the rest of it's outside. Hain Vineyard, all that is outside. I mean, there's some on the northern section near Greystone. That is inside the urban limit line, but A20. But those are also really old parcels. So we'd be making something fresh. And I understand the general rule of thumb not to do spot zoning. On the other hand, out of, I don't know, the 10 parcels that directly access Fulton Lane, more than half of them are small enough to qualify for the LR1A exemption as well.
That's correct.
And most of them are built out as LR1A. I don't know how much difference it would make, but I would think LR1A might be a better designation for this parcel, considering what's around it, which is LR1A-like parcels. They walk like a duck, they talk like a duck, they quack like a duck. Why do we move inside the urban limit line ag that's supposed to be our eventual growth area? And we're
Because
moving
the urban
A20
limit
inside the
line was
urban limit
moved
line.
out. Because the urban limit line was moved out.
No, it was
for
never,
this
it was never
parcel.
moved back in, because that was always a commercial site.
There's a little dog leg around this site for the urban limit line because it happened to already have a commercial. And when the general plan update was done, they thought something was going to be built on
Well,
it.
I
So,
know, but I'm
I guess
asking
what's-
this as a question, though, to staff. Was this considered as LR1A instead of A20? And if not, why not?
I'm sorry, when you say was it considered as LR1A, do you mean did staff consider that?
Yeah.
I can't speak to that directly because, as you recall, this came to staff prior to my time here, and it was directed to the city council. So city council made the direction to move forward with the general plan amendment to designate this as agriculture.
But I read the staff report, and it was never considered there either.
I can,
So because it was missed before, we have to miss it too? That's not a great argument.
well, I think what we aspire to do is when a privately owned property and that owner comes in and they desire to initiate a change in their property, we look at it, but and I know in this case it was our prior senior planner, Mr. Heacock. He did briefly speak to me about it. I believe there was a conversation with the city attorney because they have to review all the reports that go to the council, and there wasn't any like, oh gosh, that's like an odd duck, or why are you doing that? And so we took it to the council to see if there was support or if they had questions of why not X, Y, or Z, and they agreed that we should take this application forward as agriculture and A20 to the Planning Commission. And so that's not to say that this isn't a good conversation to have. And as we mentioned in the recommendation, if there's a majority of the commission that really doesn't think this is the right thing to do, and you want to redirect us to bring an LR, a low-density residential general plan designation, an LR1A, and come back with a different resolution, we certainly can, but that's that's obviously different than what's being sent today.
Yeah, it's definitely different, but I don't see in any of the record where this was actually given any consideration at all as an LR1A parcel.
And I would say specifically why we didn't is because for the reason that Senior Planner O'Neill mentioned is that if you look at the zoning map or the general plan, to have like, to carve out like a yellow, it just kind of, even though, yes, we have the urban limit line there, it just seems like, why did you do that? And my thought process, the more I think about this, of why the 820 in favor of it, is that if the surrounding parcels, which are 820 as you go east towards the river, if they ever wanted to do a lot consolidation, merger, you wouldn't be dealing with split zone.
I understand that, but I'm looking for something that's difficult to get in planning, which is purity, right? We've got a general plan that says, nope, everything outside the urban limit line is A20 except for stuff that's labeled as winery, right? Basically what it says, okay? So we're creating a piece of A20 inside the urban limit line. That doesn't line up with what the general plan says. That's thing one. Thing two, the whole idea here is to use the LR1A, if I can say it, Dodge, and put a huge house on it, end of story, which puts it there fixed as a huge house forever. Essentially, you don't spend $12 million on a house and then doze it the next day. I realize there are exceptions, but doubtful, right? Then you have the parcels next to it that are all LR1A in character. That's how those parcels have been treated by the owners. That's how they've been treated by the city. That's how they've developed. So all down, particularly that side of Fulton, you got a whole bunch of LR1A parcels. Now, at some point, when the city reaches out to grab that, what do you think this is all going to be zoned as? LR1A, because that's the way it is now. That's how it functions now. That's how they built out now. So given that, why don't we just jump the pony to start with and say LR1A? And I realize that's spot zoning. But in some cases, you know, the general rule of thumb collapses. And I think this is one of those cases.
As a rebuttal to that, here's another way we could go with this, is that you could recommend the council approve the staff recommendation, but also add to that that this would make me more comfortable and not have the spot zoning, is to ask the city council to have staff study this area on Fulton as a more comprehensive area to general plan and zone, and make it, if we truly have properties that fit the threshold, they're under the 2 acres, and say this, let's call a spade, this is what it is, so we don't just have this one, and then that could cover that property. Of course, we have some property owners that may not want to do that, right? And could say, no, we like being A20, but that would make it less like a spot zoning, and that we're actually really trying to ultimately bring a lot of these substandard A20 properties into more of a conformance of what I think Mr. Hardy has actually brought up in the past, that this is something eventually that we need to put on our housekeeping cleanup list to go and update all those.
I like that idea. My only question is then it would require a change to the urban limit line as well, right? Because you wouldn't be able to designate those as LR1A in what is now A20, because the general plan says everything outside the urban limit line except for wineries is A20.
That's a good point that you bring up, but that would be the only way I could see how we would alleviate the spot zoning.
The spot zoning thing. And I'm just, willing to give up the rule of thumb, because it is a rule of thumb. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's not in statute. It's not in our general plan. And I agree with the rule of thumb. I think it makes perfect sense, because you don't want to, have an elementary school right next to a pig farm, right? You don't want to do that. Although I've seen it done in Texas.
May I ask a question? I'm thinking more of the applicant here in terms of timing. I'm sympathetic to everything you and Ms. DeRosa have been discussing, but in terms of timing to get the applicant approved for something, Because if I'm hearing correctly, rezoning wouldn't change their basic rights to build a single-family home.
No, because they fall under the LR1A
yeah.
exemption if they're in the A20.
But it would, but if
It's
we.
Either if they're zoned LR1A directly or indirectly through the.
Right.
Yeah, the
right.
exemption.
But what I'm thinking here with Ms. DeRosa's point is that we could give kind of the warning that this needs to be looked at in terms of the broader issue, but still grant the applicant this zoning change so that they're not held up.
I suppose we could add it to the list, because unfortunately, one thing that needs to be considered in the general plan is disconnected, incorporated parts of the city that were not included in the general plan for some reason that I never did understand, but should be.
But
Yeah, you may not know, Jackie, but we have some disconnected portions of the city that weren't included in the general plan. Around the reservoir, it's part of the city, is incorporated.
Right. But here, wouldn't Ms. DeRosa's point solve all the problems without holding up the applicant?
Well, that's, I mean, this question, I mean, the other thing I'm worried about is we're establishing a precedent, saying that we can now general plan and zone inside the urban limit line A20. I don't want to do that. And I don't think anybody here wants to do that. They want to say, no. The A20 is where the city's supposed to grow. We don't want to bring A20 inside the urban limit line. When we expand the urban limit line into the A20, we want to, general plan that area and rezone it. Boom. We don't want to go backwards.
But
especially to use what is essentially a gimmick.
Right.
No offense.
But if what we're doing is a two-step process, we still get there. It's just that we don't hold up the applicant.
As long as somewhere reasonably in the future down the line, we get the study that says, yes, this should be A20, just like we get, somewhere down the line the study says, yes, the area around the lake should be, public, quasi-public,
right.
and or maybe even woodlands and watershed, I don't know.
Right.
But maybe public, quasi-public with an overlay, some kind of weird overlay about you can't develop here, it's just drainage to the lake, blah, blah,
Let me
blah.
ask staff, could we apply the word expeditiously to the recommendation for the consideration of what Chair Pott?
Under our current financial constraints, expeditiously is probably rattle a can on the street someplace to ask for contributions.
And I still do have an unfilled position that I'm hoping comes through next year, but.
Okay, I mean, okay, my other difficulty with this project is that it's another really super big house, on the edge of town that blocks reasonable growth in the future and will never be anything but another super big house.
But that would occur
That would occur under either condition.
Either condition, right?
Yeah,
And
unless we just say,
that's the
go away.
commenter's
But
point.
I
agree.
don't think we're in the position to tell the city council, go away.
Right.
We're in the position to tell the city council, we've got an alternative, but I don't think we're in the position to tell the city council, go away.
Right.
But I'm amenable to the solution offered by you. Future work, looking at Fulton Lane probably in its entirety, because there's a whole bunch of parcels there that are less than 2 acres that have developed as, single-family homes.
Chairman, or Ms. DeRosa, this would not need to be in the resolution, but would be part of the presentation that would be made to the city council on this one?
Or in the staff report, because we write the background, what the discussion was by the planning commission.
Right.
And all it would take to do would be look at, what's on the parcel map and see what's out there. Wait a minute, these are all big houses.
Because I share, Chair Pott, your concerns about not doing something that looks like spot zoning, but also giving the applicant at least a way to make this vacant lot that's been vacant for 15 years usable. There's a positive benefit to that and not delaying, and I'm also conscious that financing comes and goes.
That
so.
still doesn't cure my problem of, super big house on a
I
big lot
understand.
and we're not making progress in meeting our arena numbers by doing that.
It's two, like you said, it's two though, not one. I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, the point, I guess it's balancing the fact that some use will be made of this lot, which is my point about it could be further changed later. And your point that that's semi-permanent once you build on the lot, but at least better than having a vacant lot with nothing.
Well, a vacant lot with nothing that would develop, and maybe even something that generates money for the city. I don't know.
But it's 15 years it's been vacant.
There was a plan, it collapsed. Houses don't generate money for the city. Houses are a loser financially for the city. They generate money for the school district. The city doesn't get out of what it puts in to housing. Housing is a dead bang loser
Okay,
for the city.
let's just put a hotel on there. Take away the,
How about an event center?
plus an event center, is fine. I'm slightly facetious, but you're doing all these what ifs, which I agree with.
I realize they're pure speculation. An attorney doesn't
until
care
we-
to speculate unless it serves their case, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
And, you know, we're presented with a use that's
All
going
right,
to actually use something that was a vacant lot for 15 years. So.
I will admit my faults here, that we've wandered
Not a
far
fault.
afield from where we're supposed to be.
No, it's not a fault. These are good points.
We're down to, well, we asked the applicant if they care to do a presentation. You want to do a presentation?
I'd love to. Eric Lundquist, I'm with the Brodie Group, representing Fulton Junction Partners. And I don't need to go into the presentation itself because, Jackie, thank you. You touched on a lot of the information. Thank you, Maya, as well, for your favorable recommendation. And this policy discussion, which it is, general plan is a policy that sets forth the direction for growth within the city of St. Helena. And as you all know, the zoning district then implements the general plan policies. And again, I just can't stress more that this was perhaps, in my opinion, not very visionary of a general plan back when it was designated service commercial, only because that was the use. If it had been more visionary, it probably would have looked at all of these things that we're discussing here tonight. But now that the building has been demolished, which was actually in 2010, so it's been vacant for...
And we probably couldn't have done that.
25
Because we'd have
years.
had to change our urban limit line, and HCD would have come after us with a stick.
That's possible. That is quite
That's
possible.
likely.
Yes. And so what I wanted to do, thank you for the segue, touch on a few of the things. And maybe we can flip the script, because I just looked through the general plan and nowhere is expressly indicated that A20 cannot exist within the urban limit line. And I would again inform the Planning Commission, as you well know, the urban limit line is to protect development. So really it's the expansion of that urban limit line into the A20 that is expressly prohibited by the general plan. It isn't that A20 being within the urban limit line is prohibited. And in this particular case, it's not that you have a large parcel that then can be subdivided, that you're creating all of this other unique circumstances. You already have a very small parcel, hopefully being designated as agricultural and zoned A20. If it was something different than that,
And you
then-
will recognize that this is the only parcel that I'm aware of that goes in the other direction, has ever gone in the other direction.
And that's quite possible. And in this particular case, it's also beneficial because it allows connection to water and sewer facilities, which is a direct benefit as a result of residential development. There's connection fees, there's being part of that system through rates that goes to benefit the city. So there is an ultimate benefit besides the very small portion that goes to the school and through property tax, but also employment. Constructing buildings, the workers that are going to be there helps to benefit the city in some manner. But if it was something else, and in fact, the city did consider this to be an affordable housing project through the housing element work. This was considered an opportunity site, and it was actually dismissed because of its size, and that it wouldn't work on this side of, and it wasn't consistent with the surrounding development. So that has been considered. The city dismissed it. Service commercial would actually have the opportunity for a much more expansive development there with parking areas, building size, as was seen in the 2018 plan. That was a much larger building than what could be contemplated here in the future as a single-family residence that is more soft. There's more landscaping integrated into the fabric of that northeastern quadrant of the city. And Chair Pont, you mentioned some of the difficulties with that plan. It's also our speculation that it was just done for the, promoting the sale of the property to show that there was some potential for development there. And so that's another component of why that application was moving forward. So I just wanted to point those things out. I wasn't certain I quite understood where the discussion was going there with the direction to staff about the city council, so I would just like some more explanation if that is what the direction is of the planning commission.
It would mock nix for you, I'm afraid.
Say that
It
again?
makes no difference in German.
Ah, yeah, see, das ist gut. So that I kind of just want to, I don't have a presentation that I need to go into because, again, staff eloquently explained, the history of it. I just wanted to expand on the policy discussion and regulations, and thank you for the conversation. And it is our suggestion, recommendation that the planning do recommend redesignation of this parcel to agriculture and a zoning district of A20 to accommodate not only residential development, but the agricultural uses on this property that, won't be large, but there will be some presence of agricultural use on this property as that's an allowed use. So thank you very much for your time this evening. I know you've had a full agenda, so I will end there with any questions.
Any questions of the applicant? No? Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite, I know I have to say it, at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public who'd like to speak for or against this project to testify. You guys are back there laughing at me. You want to sit up here and do this? Knowing there's nobody in the audience who wants to say anything about this? Okay. Then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion, considering I've already sort of cheated and done 90% of what I want to do. Yes, Vice Chair Warner.
Yeah, I think we go with the resolution as drafted, and I think maybe have the presentation to City Council mention the concerns and points you've made in the event it's not going to be the City Council doing anything right away. It's just going to come back as part of what Ms. DeRosa said as a review of this to the extent that it's relevant to the overall zoning code consistency.
I'm in favor of that as well.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I mean, listening to the argument, I agree that probably we should. This is the first time, and I take your word of it, that we're kind of going a little backwards. But I think that maybe with some language saying that, hey, let's look at this to maybe consider it not being agricultural, more lots don't go that way. I think this could work to keep the process going. And like I said, I think if they could build the same building still in the designated, that we recognize there's an issue there, so we don't do that anymore. Maybe it could be flipped later.
The character of the street to me looks a lot like Fir Hill, right? Big estate developments, although mostly on one side, although the one on the corner is gigantic. But, that's what it looks like. Okay. I think I've already said my piece, so a motion would be appropriate at this point.
I move that based on the direction given by the City Council, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the attached resolution recommending that the St. Helena City Council, number one, find that the proposed changes to General Plan Figure 2.1 in the city zoning map are in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15303, Class 3, and 2, adopt an ordinance approving General Plan Amendment 2025-001 to update the General Plan Figure 2.1 to change the General Plan land use designation of the property at 1030 Fulton Lane from service commercial to agriculture, and adopt zoning map amendment ZMA 2025-001 to rezone the property located at 1030 Fulton Lane from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture, and incorporate these changes into the general plan and zoning maps. And number three, the commission may choose to make an alternative recommendation to the council.
You don't
No,
need
we don't
number
need
three.
that. We're not That's strike number 3. And we've already provided just general direction to staff on what would be included in the presentation regarding a overall approach to be considered at a later time.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Secretary Mero, you tally the votes, please.
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes?
Commissioner Furdak,
Yes?
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Reluctant, yes. This item is concluded. That takes us to new business. We actually have some new business.
Chair Pont, just a reminder, it is 9 o'clock. We'll need a motion to extend the meeting till 9:30.
Yes, okay,
I move to extend the meeting to 9:30, hoping we won't have to go that
have
long.
a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Secretary Gamero.
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes.
Commissioner Furdak,
Yes?
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes. Okay. We're now down to 6.1, discussion regarding proposed amendments to the St. Helena Municipal Code regarding the requirements for the visibility triangle. Director DeRosa?
Thank you. Yes, our final item of the evening. No formal action. This is just a discussion. I have some of my colleagues in the audience still here. Thank you for staying. That have actually been diligently unsung heroes working on trying to get compliance on our vision triangles, particularly a lot last year. And if you really want to dig into the weeds, we actually have an Excel spreadsheet that our fire chief can share and walk you through like street by street, or actually property by property, and some of the issues and who's complied and who hasn't. But I just want to frame the issue of what we're here to discuss, and hopefully, we can get through this in 30 minutes or less. Next slide, please. So the diagram on the right is right out of our zoning code. Whoops, we got the little pop-up box there. That basically shows we have essentially 2 standards in the code that guide how we regulate vision triangles. So we're talking about street intersections. So the first would be, what's the height of things within that shaded area? How high can that be? And our code says nothing more than 2 feet. So that would include walls, fences, vegetation. And as it relates to where do you measure from, what is the length of that? Our code says that's 35 feet from corner to corner. Next slide. And so this is Public Works Standard number 324, and which I discussed in the staff report. And I bring it up just for context, because this has been a subject of what has created some community confusion, is because for many years, I believe we were enforcing a vision triangle based on this standard. And so a lot of the public works folks were not aware that the zoning code actually had a different standard. And so when we would go out to enforce, a lot of the feedback we get, wait a minute, I thought the standard was 25. That's what we were told. Why is it 35? And so so once we adopted the new code in 2023, and the city manager made it a high priority, no, everyone needs to get in conformance, do a marketing effort. So we basically, put aside the 25 foot and said, hey, it's 35 feet. But I'm just giving this to you for some historical context. Next slide. So off they went, doing the inspections. Alec Vidler and Chief Sorensen primarily did a lot of it, and then Mr. Henry, our building official, went into, when people weren't compliant, we'd send out the courtesy letter, and then he'd go out and inspect, and they'd call and say, oh, I complied. So it's really been a real team effort across interdepartments. But essentially they surveyed 299 street corners, and we have all that inventory, and that was done in January of 2024. And they found 66 properties to be out of compliance based on the zoning code standard of 35 feet and having no more than 2 feet of obstruction from the grade. And then in summer 2024 or thereabouts, we released, a pretty strong marketing campaign, as I mentioned, about, hey, these are the requirements. So everyone was aware these are the standards. And then we did re-inspections in April 2025, and noted the number of properties that were out of compliance that got reduced down to 26. But we still have a number of properties that, are still out of compliance. And so we thought about, well, if we actually change the standard to the public works standard of 25 feet, that reduces the number of properties out of compliance to 2. So what we'd like to discuss are these 2 factors in the code, and should we keep them the same? Should we change them? So the first being, should we, a lot of the feedback was that 2 feet was just too difficult for people. We set the bar too low, and no pun intended, but they're saying, no, this is really, it is really going to be difficult for us to work with. And so we collectively had a series of internal meetings, and there was a recommendation to maybe we should just move that up to 42 inches. The police department and Public Works weighed in on that, didn't have any issue with it. And then also in concert with that, it would further help people comply is reducing the length of the vision triangle from 35 feet to 25 feet. Next slide. And so based on the discussion that we have today in any direction, if there is direction to tweak the code, what we would do is actually bring that to you as a formal zoning ordinance amendment hearing in July, and then take that on to City Council, and then in July 22nd, and then it would have a second reading, and this could all be codified at the earliest by September 12th if we follow that schedule. And this is, again, I'm not predetermining that there is going to be it, but the city manager definitely wants us to decide, are we sticking with the current code, or should we go back and change those standards? So if you want to go back to the discussion slide, there you go. I'll conclude my presentation, and also, I'm not sure, Chief Sorensen or Mr. Henry, do either of you want to come up and append to because you've really been much more truly can speak to what are the issues that you're seeing, and maybe reflect more on the importance of this discussion.
Okay. Xenia, could you pull up the PowerPoint? Sorry,
It's an
the
Excel file.
So here's out of the 299 corners, that it went down to 60, and then we got some more compliance. This shows the east side of town and the west side of town. There's more problems on the west side, the older part of town. And if you look to the right, you can see non-compliant with the 35-foot. I think you have to scroll down just a little bit, Xenia, so you show the first column with all the X's on. There you go. Is 35 foot with a 24-inch fences. So you'll see all those X's, and those are all the addresses. These are all the photos if you want to look at it, all the ones that are out of compliance. So if it was moved to 25 and 42, which is most of the fences are in the 36, 42 range. There's only, Alec is behind me. How many fences are really 24 inches? Two 24-inch in town. Or there's none in some of the new parts of Signorelli. It's just open space. So if it was moved, it would bring it down to, when Maya said 2, that's 2 of the fences. This would be vegetation and fences. Non-compliant is, if you could scroll down, Xenia, I think it's 7 or 8. See 2 there, 2 at the bottom. Yeah, there's 4, and then you got the west side of town, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 8. Okay, so there's 8. So let's take a look at one. Xenia, if you can go back up to the top. What do we like here? 1605 Spring Mountain Road. The second one down. How about that one?
Do you want her to click on the photo?
Yeah, click on the photo. Yep.
Picture, it says.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
There.
Okay, so
Oh,
this
okay.
is 1605 Spring Mountain Road. Okay, so everything at my right shoulder to the corner would have to be reduced down to 2 feet. All the vegetation would have to go. The trees would stay, stop sign, the power pole would stay, but that is how much vegetation would have to go. That's the 35-foot mark. Now, if the camera would have to move to show the 25-foot, but it would go to about the power pole stop sign area, and then that portion of the corner would have to be removed.
Well, that doesn't look like, the fence doesn't even go that far, does it?
That one,
'Cause I'm looking
we would
to-
have to move the camera 10 feet as well to
Yeah.
get the same angle on. And the way it's measured is 25 feet. You take the radius and you have the intersection of the curbs where it would
Right.
be. So the people in the old part of town get really worse off on the deal because it's measured in a shorter area. The ones with the big wide radiuses, okay, the measurement is way out into the street, and then you measure. So it's not the same.
So-
Plus, when you add 25 feet and 35 feet, the difference really from the corner, the apex of the corner, is only 7.5 feet of vegetation that comes in. It doesn't come in 10 feet. Does that make sense? 10
Yeah,
and 10,
sure.
when you draw the line. only-
triangle, yeah.
Yes. Pythagoras theorem.
Because now you're working on one leg of the triangle rather than the hypotenuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So pick another one, Xenia. Anybody want to look at anything else? Madrona Avenue, 1743. How about that one? Hillview Place, box 18.
Should we note the 25 aligns with daylighting as well?
It doesn't, but it's not measured from the same area.
But it's close.
It's close, but it's not.
Oh.
Okay. So that's a 35. Okay, that's a good example. And if it was 25, it would go to right about the tree there. And that would be how much, if you give it context, I mean, is that enough to come to it? That is uncontrolled. So this is Hillview. It does not have a stop sign. Sorry, Hillview has a stop sign, but I believe that would be Stockton, which does not have a stop sign. And I saw some public comment as well about, could it be possibly, the four-way stops, everybody's coming to a stop anyway, okay? Rather than, did you read the comment on that? Yeah, okay, so.
I've got a question, and it really is just a basic question, and I'm not an expert on safety for traffic or drivers, but it is 25 feet safe?
It's reasonable.
And is there anybody who'd say it's unsafe, or is there any transportation analysis or standard that would say 35 feet or something greater than 25 feet is preferable, even if 25 feet is safe? I mean, my sense is it's not only looking at who's in compliance, but it's just a basic safety determination.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually looking for Chair Pont because he's my favorite transportation expert of all time. But from my perspective, if 25 feet is safe, then that's less burden on people who are non-compliant. But it's first judgment is it safe? There's a movie, by the way, that has the comment, is it safe? And I won't remind you of where that comes from.
The problem with that kind of question is there's always somebody, regardless of what you do, who is going to blow through, whether it's 25 feet or 5,000 feet, So is it safer?
Maybe
yeah,
not.
35 feet is safer, and
don't think we should.
15 miles an hour is safer than 25. So, yeah,
But I don't think we should look at the exception.
it's a question of where you draw the line. That's why I was going to. Two questions for you, John. Is it mostly the height or the distance they were violating?
Both. The height of the fence?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only literally only two in town.
Only two
that
in
are,
town,
yeah,
okay.
two in town.
So-
Or there's nothing, those are in
So
compliance.
inside the 35 feet, they were, yeah. The second question is, I don't see an exemption for trees. I mean, most of these I'm aware of says that, you know, the bushes can't be any higher than X, and the trees can't be any lower than Y.
That's right, limbed up.
It limbs up.
Like that one right there would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, limbed up, until it's not safe for the tree to survive, you know, let it get
Yeah.
moving up.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So what, the tree's at 7 feet or 8 feet or 6 feet or something?
You could limit up 70% without losing the full canopy and killing the tree.
Up to 7 feet?
Mhm.
Okay.
As long as you can walk under it.
So that doesn't seem to be a problem.
Third question, and this is probably more of a question for police. When you write up your accident reports, how many of them are that, you know, they couldn't see?
I don't think there's a whole lot of accidents because they can't see. Most of our accidents are rear-end accidents, just people not paying attention. I was going to have John mention too, this is close, 25 is close to the new daylighting law, which doesn't allow you to park in that same area.
About 20 feet, yeah. Can't park within 20 feet of the curb.
That's correct. So it would somewhat align with that if you went to 25 feet.
If you go 25 because of the radius of the curve.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They're measured a little bit different, but they are fairly close.
You know, Mike,
Yeah, because some of the radii are really tight, that it wouldn't be long enough, and because some of them are really loose, it'd be longer, yeah.
You have that, and you also have, the daylighting is measured from the apex of the corner. So
Right.
after you come out of the corner, right at the straightaway, you start your 20-foot measurement, and this starts.
Sorry, correction on terminology, return, not the apex.
Oh, the
Yes.
return, sorry.
Yes.
The return, then you
Sorry.
start your 20 feet, where the other ones are from the apex of the corner.
But what I'm hearing is that most of our accidents are from inattentive driving and not from people having lack of visibility at 25 feet.
I was trying to remember the ones, the accidents that we have are mostly the kids on the bikes, if you're talking about the kids, are blowing the stop sign.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And,
common
you know,
in town.
that's-
Everybody, you know, if you see somebody drive through a stop sign in St. Helena, they live in town, you know?
and
Yeah.
that's my experience, is that the obstruction becomes dangerous when you have to pull into the walkway, you know, into the pedestrian walkway. And that's usually, you know, the setback of 25 feet, you can, you know, usually that's not within the pedestrian walkway zone. So I feel like I usually, if it's that 25 feet, I have that visibility, you know, but there are corners still in town where you kind of have to encroach into that, you know, pedestrian walkway to actually make that right-hand turn, you know, to have the visibility. And that's what I think, like, I always feel like that's what I want to avoid. I want to have the visibility so that I don't have to pull into the pedestrian walkway to make that right-hand turn, because I'm always afraid I'm going to, like, you know, someone's going to start walking across and I'm going to run into them.
And you were
So-
thinking,
I'm not so hinky about the 25 feet. I am a little hinky about the 42 inches. You know, I used to drive a car that you sat lower than 42 inches with your head. So, I mean,
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the 42-inch rule. I'm actually a proponent of that, and the reason is because I met with one of our daycare operators in town here, and in order to keep the kids in the fence, 2 feet was not reasonable. So they were faced with either keeping the fence back 35 feet based on our current standard, which basically left them no yard, so they chose not to do anything. So they basically did not change the area where they wanted to have the kids. And one of the things that I run into with homeowners is they tell me it is unreasonable to have a 2-foot high fence to keep in pets. So Most of the fences around town are see-through. Unfortunately, our code just says a hard and fast rule of 2 feet. Does not state whether it's see-through or not. So if we have a see-through fence, like some kind of hog wire fence or picket fence, 3.5 feet is reasonable. We can still see cross traffic and pedestrians.
Yeah, Philip, I wasn't thinking that 24 was tall enough. I was just thinking 42 is too tall.
Right.
2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet, but 3.5 feet gets to be pretty tall. Like I said, I used to drive a car where my head sat lower than that,
But there aren't many cars like that anymore.
I don't know if I can get into it anymore, is the problem. But, there's still cars out there like that. And also, a lot of the older folks who pedal bikes, a lot of those three-wheel bikes are recumbent. So you are set down too low for a 42-inch fence.
I think I've seen one in town.
I've seen several of them in town.
May I ask, you did all the corners. Can you, by any chance, did you look at Allison and Charter Oak corner?
It's on there. I just want to show you this one. This is a 36. This is a stone wall at Madrona and Vineyard. And I drove this in my wife's car, 4-door sedan. And you can clearly see, that's me driving. I'm a little bit, my wife is like 5'10", but I could see clearly over that. Could I see a toddler? No. What is a toddler doing by themselves out there? Not a great idea. A kid on a bike? Yeah, I could have seen that one, no problem. Yes, I'm up on the crown of the street. I was probably 30 feet back. I should have given you that shot from the 4-door sedan, but this is what I have to say.
And you're getting the bonus that nobody's parked there, which they won't be able to now.
You can now with the daylighting. Nobody should be, and that's going to be 25 feet,
Yeah.
right about, depending on the measurement. So you shouldn't have any vehicles there anymore. And then Alec mentioned that most of the corners fences are see-through. The hog panel, that's the classic 42, top rail, pressure treated or redwood. And the area to look at would be Stockton. Stockton, if there's any of those, 1530 Stockton, and then Hector, we'll get back to you in a second. 1530 Stockton.
So you're thinking something that says at 42 inches or above 30, you have to be able to see through the fence?
That's another thing. Here it is. Here's a fence, and you can't see it, but it is notched out. But there is a hedge now grown to square off the corner. But this one is dog-eared, and remember, my left arm would have been 35 feet. So this one's out of compliance no matter what.
That's on Madrona. Madrona and Stockton?
That's Madrona and Stockton. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember the house across the street.
That one had a problem. They were actually, I think this photo, if you move it, the photo is the guy with the trimmer trimming while we were taking these pictures. 'Cause this is a target enriched. 3 corners are out of compliance if you want to go take a look there. I think you all know that one.
Oleander?
English Laurel.
Yeah. About Hector's.
Yeah, Hector, which one are you looking for?
Allison and Charter Oak.
Okay. It's Allison or Charter Oak, Xenia.
In fact, I need to fess
There it
up.
is.
I live on a corner, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
How's your?
825 or 910, Xenia.
I was, because
Number
I let
29 or
the rock
30.
roses bloom, then I cut them.
Yeah, try that one.
And I hate to cut them while they're blooming.
All right.
That's not it.
The Brown and Allison? Okay, so go to the next one.
Oh, yeah, they let the hedge grow in.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So line 30.
I will just say that I am
clearly-
in favor
clearly
of
visible,
recommending.
You can go up to 36 inches, but, it needs to be clearly visible. I don't know. Above that?
I'm in favor of 25 feet and 36 inches.
I think that's probably a good compromise. I think, I'm
36, 40.
I'm feeling reluctant to say 42. I recognize that's easier.
I could
because
go to
that's the-
42.
That's the same height.
So may I
Fence can
talk
be
a
in the side
little,
yard.
please? So it's very similar to this corner. It was really overgrown, and then they cut it down. Now it's like half of them died. The problem lies, even with tourists, that when you come to that stop, some people are blowing and trying to eat that corner,
Yes, they're cheating it.
and they're cheating it, right? I don't know. I'm not within traffic, but I am a OSHA 500 certified to go on job sites and where there's big machinery and everything. And when I started construction 27 years ago, there was a lot of deaths, right? What I'm looking at, and I know Santa Elina's been strict, but just a tourist or anybody not knowing, being able to see a vehicle that's there rather than eating it and hitting it. And that's why I was kind of concerned with traffic. And then you're right, maybe in Santa Elina there isn't much, but I've seen some people speed on Charter Oak and eat that corner. And I don't know, some of them are local or not, but now that the hedge is kind of there, I think I don't think the fence is at the right height because, but if you look at the measurement, right, some of them have a curb, a sidewalk, 6 inches plus then the width, and it gets to where little Hondas or anything, you can't really see it if you go too high. Now, I don't know about you, but I think you buy a corner lot or an intersection lot, it should be safe, and even if you just save one life every 10 years, to me, safety is about everything. Now, there could be a compromise. I mean, I think 35 feet might be a little long, but long as you could kind of see the car when people eat the curb or whatever, whether it's a four-way stop, you're on a corner, you bought a corner lot, and I just think things have gotten overgrown because I don't think they're supposed to even be that tall after you lose a quarter, right? Some of the fences can't go. I mean, because we can't have that in front
That's correct.
yards, right?
That's correct. On the straightaways, we're just doing the 300 corners.
And I'm just thinking,
Well, under our current code, that hedge is too tall.
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
exactly. So they just it kind of keeps going and then it keeps going. And I'm just thinking safety and people that eat them curves. And I've seen it over and over. I go, God darn, they're going way too fast on the street, but then they're eating the curve. And if they don't see a little car there, you're almost backing up. It's kind of scary.
So how about if we went with Commissioner Furtick's kind of compromise where you don't go all the way up to 42 inches, but you go to 36 and 25 feet?
I would say if we're going to go up with the fence line of 2 feet to 36, it has to be something see-through, and the vegetation has to at least be kept down, or else what's the use of if you can't see a vehicle there? That's what these
I
corners are
think the
meant to say.
36 inches applies not just to fence, but to vegetation, right?
Yeah.
So to give you, that chair rail behind you, that's about 42 right there. Your desk is about 32, 34 is a standard desk. So somewhere in between there would be 36. Most of them are 42 in town. So that just gives you kind of a rough idea.
Yeah, I know that'll bring us into compliance.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about the
That's why,
safety
because
part
your
of it.
Side yard, you're allowed to be 42 inches tall.
Yeah.
Within, 20 feet of the front, right? Philip? Yeah, that's what it is.
Sounds right?
Yeah, that's the standard that we use for fences on a driveway pulling out.
Yeah.
Is 42 inches.
42 inches on the side, unless you're 20 feet back from face of curb, then you can go 6 feet.
Well, to
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez's point, all we're worried about, we'd love to have nobody be in non-compliance. But I, again, think safety is important, and maybe what we do is we recommend 36 and 25 feet, and we're going to have more people non-compliant, right? We're going to have a few
So
more.
that's my question. How many people does that still leave non-compliant?
Can you close the photo and we can take a look?
Chair Pont, before we proceed, can we call for a motion to extend the meeting until 10 p.m.?
Yeah,
And that's the latest we can go.
Okay, I move we extend the meeting to 10 p.m.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. Ms. Gamero, will you count the votes, please?
Vice Chair Warner,
Yes?
Commissioner Furtick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
and Chair Pont.
Yes. So it sounds like we're close. I mean, I like the
Well-
25 feet because that kind of lines up with the new statute. So I'm assuming the curbs will be redded out eventually? No. No? Oh, boy, a ticket writing opportunity if I ever saw one. No.
So just to address that, so potentially downtown, we would do that, but not all through town. That's
Okay.
just way too much curb to maintain.
Okay, okay. So we're
We'll
gonna
get you a
end up
count here.
chasing every yard grooming company in town for doing it, I'm pretty sure. But that does line up well, you know. Yeah,
Why
within
don't we have a volunteer
reasonable
force do it?
with the
Like,
new
if
statute.
you're on a corner and you
So
want to paint it
25
red,
feet
you
I like, and the only thing I'm thinking about now is how tall. I like 3 feet. I don't like 2.5. I don't like 3.5. I like 3.
Yeah.
Well,
So and the reason I ask is because if we still leave a lot of people out of compliance, we can't defend that we have a problem because we have a lot of accidents caused by this. I think we have an issue. So I would rather, because we're not making a safety case. So then I would say, if there are truly so many people that have fences at 42 and not 36, and we can't say, evidence shows that in the past so many years, we've had so many accidents because, then we don't have a case.
But we don't have a lot of accidents in town, so it's kind of hard to make that case anyway. But what
Then we don't have a safety
The case
issue.
I think you can make, and pretty easily, is look at other people's codes.
Well, but we're fixing a problem we don't have. We don't have a safety issue if we don't have accidents caused by this.
See, part of the reason we don't have a safety issue, I think, is people are more cautious on those corners where they know they can't see. It's a
Let me
chicken
try
and
to
egg thing.
let me try to address Commissioner Furtick's point. I would be comfortable going to the city council with 42 and 25 feet with some research in terms of whether other jurisdictions in Napa that are similar to ours have a different than 42 inches.
A bunch of that is in the staff.
We do have that. It's actually attached to,
Okay,
if you want me to
sorry.
just give you the highlights.
Yeah, give me the highlights, sorry. I didn't-
Okay, so just reading, City of Napa, visibility shall not be blocked between a height of 2 and 7.5 feet within the vision triangle, except that fences that are at least 50% open shall be permitted up to 3 feet in height. Okay, let me just jump down. That was a little convoluted, not the easiest. The City of Healdsburg, let's see, they, on corner lots within a triangular area formed by street lines, the shall not exceed a height of 30 inches above established grade at the edge of an existing or proposed pavement, provided that trees are pruned up to 8 feet above feet. So they're one of the few that actually calls out trees. Okay, now I'll move on to Santa Rosa. Within a vision triangle, 36-inch maximum height with nothing over 24 inches in the first 5 feet behind the curb line. We can go to Petaluma, which they actually don't really, they didn't have a specific prescriptive standard, so I want to use that one. And then City of Cotati, fences, walls, hedges, and other structures, vegetation shall not exceed a height of 3 feet within a clear, and the lower portion of tree crowns shall not be less than 8 feet within a clear vision triangle. So your 3 feet is a little bit more of the median.
I just want to remind you all, just because people let things grow or get bigger doesn't mean we have to bend to that if it's not safe. And anything over 3 feet, even if I'm thinking about it as a carpenter, and you have 6-inch curb and then you let, have 30 inches, there you have your 3 feet because the car is going to be not on the sidewalk, right? So you got to kind of at least see, oh my God, give at least the bad driver a warning that there's something there, or else somebody's gonna
Okay,
get squashed.
let me throw out an idea.
Okay?
Okay, what if we say, if it's and again, I'm referring to, plants are easy to trim, but fences are hard to redo, they're costly, right? So what if we say 36-inch max if the fence is a solid fence, and 42 if the fence is an open fence?
I was thinking about the same thing about, above 36 inches up to 42, if it's clear. I'm comfortable with that. And again, I'm with Commissioner Lopez, is that we can't just simply be looking at people who are non-compliant, who are going to basically come and argue that we have no safety reason for doing this. We've got to set it somewhere, and I'm comfortable that I'm hearing from these benchmarks from other jurisdictions. I would be a little worried if we were way out of whack on how high the fences would be with the other jurisdictions. Sounds like 36 or even lower.
I've never
benchmark.
seen any traffic engineering studies. I don't know if you have, Joe. I've never seen anything about that at all. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I've never seen it.
I mean, you have visibility studies, right? And so
Yeah.
that's
That's usually, down the road kind of thing.
right. And so I think all the points are well taken. I mean, you're dealing with pedestrians, cyclists, vehicles, and just the confluence at the intersection and how to make that as safe as possible.
So what if we went with Commissioner Furdak's approach, just as kind of trying to get to a compromise here?
My
do you
worry
think?
about that is, of course, everybody then plants a potato vine right next to the fence, and poof,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're 42 inches plus a little over the top.
That's true.
I would, my professional opinion for safety, no other city went over 36.
Yeah,
So why would we do it just because they built the fence that high? Hire a carpenter, get it,
Let's
chop it
stick
down.
with
I could go there and
36.
cut it in no time and
That makes
retop it.
sense. Let's stick with 36.
When I moved into town, I had some of my fence cut down, so it would be 42 inches. It was too tall.
So I did do quite a bit of research on this, and I did find some cities that did allow 42 inches. I believe it was the city of East Palo Alto. There was quite a few cities outside the state of California. So if you Google, there was many cities that came up, and I found in Washington State, the city that I worked for in Arizona, it was 42 inches in our vision triangle. So that is consistent with other cities. In Napa County, or very close by, it is true that I don't believe I found one, but in the East Bay, I believe it was the city of either Palo Alto or East Palo Alto allowed a 42-inch high fence.
Right, South Bay.
And a lot of them did have language that said a fence of so high as long as it was 50% open, which would be, consistent with like a white picket fence, for example, because it's 50% open.
Well, I hate to push this on to the city council with a significant number of non-compliant ones, but if we're going to err, we're going to err on the side of where I think other jurisdictions are. And if people come out of the woodwork, no pun intended, to basically oppose 36 and say it should be 42, that's a call. I would basically err on the side of safety and say so.
Or we give the city council an option. We say there was kind of a consensus on the 25 feet.
Right.
And we say and give them two options, which is a standard 36 inches on the height, or 42 inches with 50% open visibility, and let them choose.
I'm not sure 50% would be easy to
No, and 50%
comply.
wouldn't, I don't think 50% would be enough, because depending on your angle, if you use just a straight up lattice, right, depending on your angle, that could easily be 100% obscured.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to do that. So it'd have to be something open like hog wire or chicken wire. Let's get really fancy.
I'm comfortable
75%.
going with what seems to be the most common one in our region, which is 36, for lack of a separate safety issue. And I think that to the extent people come in and say, you know, this is a hardship, I have a beautiful fence and you're going to destroy my fence, they come in and argue the case, and you know, we in the city council can say, well, but the standard is 36. I hate to actually decide on something, but I'd rather decide on something that's a precedent elsewhere.
You know, and part of this, unfortunately, is, anybody remember a few years ago when Dennis finally figured out that nobody had ever done a study on flossing? You know, they kept telling you floss, 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 floss for the last 75 years, but nobody had ever done the study to figure out whether flossing actually had any benefit.
Right, right.
So they had to sort of say, well, it just seems obvious. So we're going to have to pick a number that sort of seems obvious and go with it. Because
Yes,
there
I
are,
agree.
as far as I know, there aren't any studies on this particular item.
And
There could
I
be,
would,
but I don't know.
again, defer, if our staff, if you all basically say that, you know, you're comfortable from a safety standpoint based on all the precedents with 42, let's make sure that goes in front of the city council, because I'm not the safety expert here. All I'm going on is based on the precedents we have. And some of us have our own, you know, examples of our own belief of what's visible or not, but I don't think we're the experts. And so if the staff,
deal with it every day.
if our police and fire say 40, and building codes say 42 is safe, if you want to be more safe or more benchmarking with other jurisdictions, you go with 36, I'd be fine with that as well. Remember, we're just providing guidance, and we have staff that have looked at this, so we're not deciding finally between 36 and 42. We're
We're not
providing
the
guidance.
deciders.
That's right.
Well, we are looking to bring a potential red line code amendment, so I am looking for a prescriptive number.
Well, can you do this? 25 feet,
Right, that.
36 parentheses 42.
Right.
You know, let them pick.
Yeah, I hate to put this on the city council, but we've had some folks here who are actually more expert than we
So
are.
they can spend
I'm not comfortable
hopefully
saying.
twice as much time talking about this.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable saying 36 versus 42, that's all.
So you would be comfortable either way. You could, if it landed on, and they said, okay, it is going to be 42, that's not going
I
to,
think we got some various opinions there. I'm a hell of a lot more comfortable at 36. Like I said, I used to have a car that my head wasn't tall enough to see over 42 inches. It just wasn't there.
I'm the same way.
And I drive an SUV, so I can see either way.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah,
and-
I mean, cars have gotten taller
Yeah,
and heavier,
I mean,
right?
I personally wouldn't go for 42. I just wouldn't do it. Not,
And I think
just-
that- I think-
and that's just my belief, but that's just my life experience, and
Well-
that's why we're so different, and that's why we get to vote
yeah.
on things.
I mean, what I pick up from the consensus of this conversation is 42 is the outlier. You're all definitely more comfortable with 36 inches.
Let me
as
qualify
the
that a
lead.
little bit. I'm supportive of what Hector has said, but I don't have any safety analysis to base 36 over 42 on. And I'm comfortable if somebody tells me 36 is going to be okay from a safety standpoint. I think it is. I'm also comfortable if somebody tells me 42 is safe.
Did we
just
figure
thought-
out how many people would be non-compliant at the 36 height?
9?
We didn't specifically notate every single fence that was 36 or above because
Right.
we weren't really looking for that. But on this list, there's about 4, I think, that are over 36 inches. Some of them are 42, some are 38. But I feel like there was more than that.
What
were
was the
42
rock
inches.
wall height? 36, wasn't it?
Correct.
So they got
Yeah.
safe. They're safe.
Don't have
Yeah, that's
to
36.
knock down the rock wall.
Right. Okay, well,
That guy was
Okay,
smart.
well, we're seeing a bunch of them all over town going up, but, you know.
and I think staff can adequately provide our different points of view as part of the recommendations, and basically understand that we are not deciding between 36 and 42, but each of us have different.
No. We don't need a vote on this one, right?
No vote.
Okay.
Just
So-
really quick commentary. So I did look up in Caltrans design manual. The the height of the driver's eyes for stopping sight distance is 42 inches.
So it's right at the edge. I wouldn't go the 42 then, that's right at the edge.
So that's the Caltrans Highway Design Manual.
That's something, that's a data point.
Well, it's a good data point, because that's
Can
how
you
they
send
use
that to me?
ability.
To include in the staff
Yes.
report for next time?
Yep.
Thank you.
He can send you a copy of the whole manual.
To peruse at your leisure. Okay.
Okay. Are we done?
Okay, Ms. DeRosa? we
Okay.
have enough?
No scheduled matters. Do you have any department reports?
I do not. Thank you for enduring a long meeting. On our next meeting, the first meeting in June is canceled, but we do have items for June 17th.
So one at the end of June, but not at the first?
Correct.
Okay.
And-
All right.
And I do want to compliment staff, particularly the great staff presentations on everything, all the detail. Good work, good work, very good staff work.
And those
thank
of you
for-
that get overtime for this, good for you. No.
Yes.
Thank you all.
We are adjourned.